And we are live. Hello, everybody. Nice to see you guys for this anniversary stream. It's a bit late here, guys. It's about 1:25 a.m. here where I live in Taiwan, so please don't mind if my voice is a little bit lower pitched than it normally is. But this is an event that I would absolutely not have missed. So that's why we're doing this together. A bit late, but we just had something very exciting, guys. I was waiting for this and it just came out. So let's check out. That's going to be our first segment for today's live stream. There's also a letter from the chairman. We can also do a review as well of the MAA. And there's also the 2050 Imperator ballot election. You know what, guys? We're going to do that first. The Eradicator is going to vote, and that should be an interesting one here. So welcome to the official ballot of the 2050 United Empire of the Imperator election. You can only vote once. Hey Richard, how are you? You can only vote once, so make your candidate choice carefully to review the available candidate information. Return to the 2050 Imperator election comlink. Hey Ted, how are you doing? Nice to see you today. So we're going to go there very quickly so that we can have a look at the candidates that we did see, by the way. We have seen those candidates, not really in person, but we did see their posters pretty much all over the verse, and there's quite a few, and that's the current Imperator here. And we are going to change between Addison, what's her name again here? Full name, we just know that her name is Addison, right? Titus Costigan, Leilani Addison, Titus Costigan. We have Paul LaSalle, Miranga Ngo, Ileana Sharad as well. Hello, Jericho, how are you? So, it looks like vote Addison, says Jericho. No, I'm not going to vote Addison. I'll tell you why. So here, this one is currently all for progress. She endorses some Institute of Interspecies and Peace. No, not a peace here. Costigan, he is a businessman. He is all for business economy trust, merchant guild, intersystem holders united. I like that very much. Not too bad. Not too bad. Paul LaSalle is my favorite here. He's all for business as well and for the centralist party. He is the one I will be voting for because he wants to crack down on criminals and end the war very quickly. This one is more of another peace-loving woman. We don't want that. And this is Civil Engagement Society. She seems also to be from the Universalist Party, so not interested in that as well. So we will be voting for Paul LaSalle. Vote. Boom. We still don't know. Before you click, oh no, I forgot to. I forgot to do that. What is this here? I support. What I want to have this badge here. There we go. Where's my badge? Where's my badge? I don't think that I can have it here. Not really. No, I cannot see. Anyway, it's a bit late. That's not very important. That's not what we came for. Whereas we came for what is the most important, which is, of course, here, the briefing room. So let's have a look here. Good morning. Well, it's the, what is it? It's the morning technically here. It's 1:28 a.m. So let's jump straight into that Squadron 42 update. Seems like we have an introduction first, and then we're going to have a very long video, guys. I checked out. It's 1 hour and 18 minutes. So it's going to be quite long. We'll be spending a lot of time together. Look at that. Is that an M50? Seriously, an M50 Interceptor in Squadron 42? Who would have thought, right? So here we go. Let's have a look right here. Oh, we're gonna have to watch this on YouTube. Let's go back since the beginning. Come on, the beginning here. Technical difficulties. All right, here we go. Oh. Those first 20 seconds have shown already quite a lot. So that's from the vertical slice. Oh look, the Grey Cat Miner. There's Mark Hamill. This is the hit. Why is there an M50 interceptor in Squadron 42? It's crazy. Jericho says this is the video we've been waiting for such a long time. Yeah, 5 months, Jericho. 5 months. Oh wow. An important update from the Squadron 42. Guys, yeah, the elephant in the room, but it's been 1 minute and 27. Let's go back. There's so much to see here in 1 minute and 27 seconds. Let's go back from the very beginning. This is the attack on Vega, obviously. We know that because it's from one of the trailers that we've seen a long time ago. This is, of course, Admiral Bishop. And this is definitely looking much more refined than what we've seen before. They definitely did work on that quite a lot. But is this from a cutscene, or are we going to play in Vega? Because looks like we have a terrapin here. If I could be wrong, but this looks like... Oh, this is weird. This is not a terrapin. This is maybe some kind of... Do you guys recognize this ship here? Because I don't recognize the front of the ship. I don't really know what this is. This is not I was thinking this was a terrapin, but it's not a terrapin. But it looks like we are still here in the wreckage of Vega, so maybe we'll be spending more time there than originally I was thinking, that maybe we would spend most of the time in the Odin system, but maybe not. Now this is the Odin system, for those of you who remember. That's that kind of base that we saw in that original 2016. Gosh, that was in 2016, guys. That we had that no, not in 2016, 2017. That we had that vertical slide for Squadron 42. Definitely has looked a little bit better. Yeah, right. It's like a drone. We can't see the cockpit of that ship. Absolutely, you're right, Jericho. Some interiors here. There's definitely going to be a lot of FPS action. This is again from the vertical slide, but with updated graphics and animations. Where those prisoners here were being transferred to the Stanton. Now, where is this? I was originally thinking this was in the Stanton itself, which is the Idris frigate, but maybe not. It's very looking quite industrial. I don't know what this is here. If this is an actual ship that is being made. No, but these look like the Cygnus from the Cygnus miners from Greykak Industrial. No, it's not a Hammerhead color. Ah, there's Mike Hammer. We've seen that. An M50. This is crazy. Are we gonna fly an M50? The M50 is good for nothing. It's gonna have to be a military variant, because the M50 is really good for nothing in the verse, unless we can really get the components that we want from our engineers. Then we can have maybe some much better shields and size. Instead of having gimbal size 1, we can have fixed size 2. We can do something a little bit more decent. But in the PU, the M50 is absolutely incapable of doing anything except for reconnaissance and scanning. Maybe lots of destruction here as well. Yeah, the white M50 looks super cool. Possibly used as a shuttle mecha? I don't know. I would imagine that it could be used as a reconnaissance vessel, maybe. Hey, Griffiths, how are you doing today? This is not in the M50, though this is in a Gladius, as we can see here in the UI. Still in the Gladius. This is like the... Is it the broken? No, that's not the brokenness in the... Look at this here. What is this? That definitely is a MISC ship, but it doesn't look like your regular Freelancer. Obviously, it kind of looks like a Freelancer Max, but it doesn't look like the regular Freelancer. Is it because of the... is it because it's a wreck, or because of the luminosity, maybe? I don't know. The white M50 looks... the M50 is fun to fly, says Griffiths. It is fun to fly, but in combat it is... I'm sorry, it's good for nothing. I suppose the M50 is going to be against Aurora, Mustang, and 100 series class ship. Perhaps. Perhaps. things are getting a little bit more dramatic here. Some explosions, smoke, and dead bodies, of course. Hey, Geeky P, how are you? All right, let's listen to the Squadron 42
Finally,
team.
the Squadron 42 video.
Sounds like Chris. There's Chris.
Yes, yes.
Take it away, Brian. We want to do. I mean, I'm partly guilty for one of the reasons why it's finally here, as opposed to a much.
I don't think we've seen the Max in the teaser before, Jericho. I don't think so. We've seen a Starfarer. It was a Starfarer that was in the vertical slice, but not a Max.
Simpler, shorter thing that we were playing around with an idea earlier. But Brian, do you want to maybe?
Yeah, we initially planned to. Absolutely, we initially planned to. I was just gonna call up some of the guys, as I kind of casually do from time to time, record it, talk about our progress, and see what was going up. It ended up being
Which
really,
was totally fine.
good discussion.
I don't know what you guys think.
And we'd go in depth on some design stuff and art choices and so on. But when we looked at it and kind of showed it to Chris, at the surface there really wasn't visuals attached to it, and it didn't really kind of show off our progress. So when Chris dug into it a little bit more and he said, wait, let's see how we can give this a little bit more life. Let's look what we can do. At that point, one of the areas that we were working on and talking about was Asiato. And I worked.
So the Asiato, for those of you who don't remember, is that kind of giant space station that is like a giant comm station that is kind of like almost abandoned. It's about to be decommissioned, and we've seen some glimpse of the interiors, and that's what they're talking about here.
With Nathan Dearsley, and talked about the progress of where we were, and he's like, hey, give me a couple weeks and it's basically going to be done, right? So we said, okay, wait, hold on. It went from this casual small conversation that we had recorded and we were all proud of and thought was good to, you know what, no, we're going to do a bigger thing. And then once we looked at that, we said, wait, why don't we actually look at a larger, wider amount of progress across multiple disciplines, and see if we can put this show together on a quarterly basis. So this first one's a little
great. So this is basically going to be our next Pillar Talk, right? We're gonna have. I don't know if Pillar Talk is ever going to come back, but it seems like we're going to have this show on a quarterly basis, which is great because a lot of people are, including myself, eagerly waiting for Squadron 42, and the lack of progress has been most displeasing, to say the least. So if we can have a decent video, like I saw that's an hour and 18 minutes long, every quarter, I'm all for that.
A little bit longer than they may be moving forward. We're not sure how the length's going to be moving forward, but we dig into some guys. You get to hear some history. You get to see certain level of detail. You'll hear design choices with Nick and a couple of the other guys, and I think people are going to like it, and I think it's going to mature. The show's going to mature as we move forward.
And I think the other thing I would just add to it is that everyone's super busy. We want to make the game, right? So we don't want to spend a huge amount of time generating assets just for a show. So one of the focuses of it is well, why don't we sort of look at what we've got planned for the quarter? And so in this particular case, Asiato is the location that we're going to deep dive into. We've teased a few elements of it before, like we saw a little bit
we're gonna see Asiato again.
The teaser we did the end of last year.
Yeah, Lord Grim, that's also the way I feel. Asiato again. No, I don't want to see Asiato. I want to see battles.
So instead of I
want to see action,
which is what was happening much earlier on when we did the sort of an initial thing. We said, no, let's have the art department finish it properly so it's game ready, and we can also show it as we're talking about it. I think that's one of the keys for us is we want to update everybody on our progress, but we don't want to spend all this extra time just doing work that's only going to go for the show. It really should be mostly about, hey, let's show off what we've achieved as we're moving forward, finishing out Squadron 42.
Yeah. Plus, this works really well because it's early on in the story, and Asiato isn't too much of a spoiler for anyone.
I think internally too. I think
we've already seen Asiato quite a bit, so that's why it's not a spoiler. But at the same time, I don't know what you guys think. Please tell me in the chat down there. Do you want to see Asiato again, or do you want to see something else? I'm kind of fed up already with Asiato. But
that we go out and things get updated and things get improved along the way, right? So showing things that are work in progress, I think work with that model, and that's fine. And you get to see really early examples of it.
Going on that, I think like what's interesting is one of the things that people say, oh, I enjoyed the ATV shows back in 2017, but what
Yes.
they don't remember was we didn't really release an update for the PU for almost a year because we were trying to get the Planet Tech in and all the rest of the stuff, and then
Correct.
it finally came
Yeah.
in with 3.0. So we had this huge gap where had stuff that people weren't getting as a build, say every 3 months, and so they
Yeah.
would see this stuff and think, oh, I'm seeing all this really cool stuff. Now, one of the actual problems we have with the PU inside Star Citizen is that every 3 months they're getting a lot of this content and drops and everything. So they're like, well, that's
Yeah.
boring. I've seen it because they're getting to see it and play it. Whereas Squadron's different than that.
Well, that's not true, Chris. I really disagree with Chris because here, what was so great about those old ATV videos, the long ones, we were talking about, around the verse videos that were lasting for half an hour, 45 minutes, is that they were showing actual progress and how the days were working on doing that progress, not just a brief summary, but they were going into details of also future iterations of gameplay loops, of future content as well. There's a lot of future iterations, there's a lot of future content that is going to come in Star Citizen as well. There are lots of possibilities to make half an hour long around the verse or inside Star Citizen episodes. Talk about iCache, talk about server meshing. I don't think that any of us would get enough of iCache and server meshing until it gets released because we desperately want these to be coming up in the future. So here, I think that Chris here, I'm sorry, Chris, but I think that he's making excuses.
I mean, obviously we can't show all of what we're doing in Squadron because it will definitely spoil some of the story and the surprise. And there's a lot of really cool moments that we have in the game that I think is going to be very powerful and affecting for people. But we certainly have stuff that you don't have that. You're not running around. For instance, Asiato Station. You're only ever going to see that in the PU after Squadron's out. You're never going to see it before then.
Okay, so the Asiato station is going to be in the PU2. By the way, do you guys know in which system it is located? The Asiato system. I don't know. I think, is it also in the Odin system? Would be interesting. Let's have a look here. Asiato station Squadron 42. Let's have a look. Let's have a look here. Asivedo. It doesn't say. All right, never mind. Chris is filming from his phone and sat on the toilet. Oh my god, so naughty.
And there's plenty of other stuff that we're doing that you don't see. Like there's a lot of sophistication in the AI and the social AI that you don't see in the PU because we're not implementing that yet. It will be stuff that we can use later on, but the bleeding edge of it is definitely Squadron. And so I feel like we can really do a sort of more chunky dive in Squadron every quarter, and we would also combine it with a sort of report of what we've completed that quarter and have some visuals to show. So you sort of have a visual video accompaniment.
Not that I know, bigger.
3 monthly reports all rolled into one, plus the deep dives. And I think that will be a really fun and interesting way to get sort of your update and information on Squadron while you're waiting for it. Which, I guess gets us to the other elephant in the room, Brian.
Yes. The roadmap.
We're gonna have the roadmap finally. It's been such a long time too, right? So let's hear what they have to say about the roadmap.
Roadmap is not done yet. It's not.
Can we at least have the roadmap to the roadmap? Come on.
Not done. It's not going to be posted tomorrow, but we are actively working on it. It's an involved process. We're not just putting something together quick that's here's some text that we're throwing up. We're actually creating a system to where internally it's a tool that we use, or it can feed into the tools that we use on a daily basis, and it's something that can then get pushed external and be updated as close to real time as possible. So it really is a gauge when devs finish his work and they tick it off within our software. That information gets fed all the way through. What I can say as far as, and there's been really good progress on it right now, it's just not at a point where we can actually get it external.
Can we at least have a video about the roadmap or roadmap to the roadmap? We don't even know what's going on here with the roadmap. We just know it's not ready, which is disappointment. That's right, Lauren. Because of reasons, right? There's not a lot of this non-Digicon event or non-event has been quite disappointing, unfortunately. Um, at least we have the Squadron 42 video finally, but that's pretty much it, right?
I believe the last roadmap we had did say we were going to be beta this calendar year.
Yes, it did say that finally this is being addressed here by an official like Cloud Imperium. So what is Brian going to say?
We will not be beta this calendar year.
I think that we all guess that. Yes. So when are we going to be beta then?
That's one thing that I absolutely know. And once we do have the dates that us internally and leadership and the team are confident that we have dates that we believe we can hit with all the data that we have together, we're gonna share that with everybody as soon as we can.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that's, back on the roadmap aspect of it, one of the big focuses is the change from just the goal, which is like, okay, this feature done or this piece of content done, to also what all the teams are working on. And, because a lot of times we can have teams working on something for 6 months or a year, but the feature you may not even see, or the content you may not even see because it's not currently on our roadmap, because it's outside that scope of view. And so that's why a lot of things show up on the roadmap now. Oh, look, suddenly this feature showed up. Well, no, we were actually working on it for quite a while. So one of our big impetuses is like, it would be much better for us to shift the visibility for everyone to know what everyone is working on, what their priorities, and then you sort of understand, because ultimately we've always got 10 things that we want to do and only enough time to do 5 at any one time. So you've got to make, or actually it's more like 1,000 things we want to do and only time enough to do 10 or 100 or whatever of them at the same time. So
yes, but what I liked with the current system here, the current roadmap that we have, is that it's still, even though it's not reliable, even though it changes a lot and we get last minute changes, it still gives us, the backers, an idea of the direction that we are taking. And the fact that even this one is not even being updated properly, because let's face it, after the next quarter, well, we got nothing, right? Is a little bit unfortunate, because I still want to know what is going on, right? I don't want to have to rely on the letter from the chairman telling me that iCache is scheduled internally for quarter 2 2021. I want to see that in the roadmap right now, even with the roadmap that we have, right? So I don't understand why we don't have it right. I mean, why the current roadmap system, even though it is old, even though it's obsolete, is going to be changed, it still needs to be updated, because that's all we have.
So there's always a priority call, but at least with this visibility, you can see, oh yeah, there's people working on this, working on something like, I don't know, salvage, right? So we have people that will be working on elements of that before, but you don't see salvage right now at all on the current PU roadmap. And so you'll sort of see the allocation. It's the same for people working on Squadron as it will be for the PU. And so you sort of feel like it's better to communicate what people are working on. And, when they finished it, it falls out of that, of course, but it's not just focused on the end goal or task, because a lot of times those will move, because just sometimes the team will, there'll be things they just haven't realized, or there's a problem they've got to fix something, or maybe there's bugs in a system they wrote previously that they've got to go and help fix for a live release, but then that's going to eat into the time they were working on that new feature that you were hoping to get by this date, but now it's going to go back because they had to spend an extra couple of weeks bug fixing. And what we want to do really is have a system that we use internally to manage and visualize all this, that also we can use externally, so we don't have to do a whole bunch of additional sort of interfacing and management of the data to get to all you out there, right? All
yes, Scott, this is new.
Is interested in
it's just released.
The problem is, once we do that, it becomes an extra effort, an extra, then when you need to change things, people don't like to change them until they've got enough to change, or they want to know a little more information before they change. So we're just like, let's not worry about how it goes. What you're going to see is basically a version of what we see. It'll be a bit more sanitized. You won't know the individual names, because obviously we don't want to get into Nick Elm said he would do this in 2 weeks, and it's taken him 2 months. Fire Nick Elm. aspect that you
Take
can
that.
get into it. But I think it'll be worth it. And the other thing that's important to note is that
Yep.
this isn't just about giving someone a spreadsheet, right? This is we've got a full sort of Jira system, and also it's like building an app on our web platform that interfaces
Absolutely.
with it, that displays it. It's a whole engineering initiative, and that again, like a lot of stuff that we do on a web platform, like building the communications. The
I mean, it's great to have Chris talking about this, but why haven't we had an actual video in Inside Star Citizen about the actual progress of the roadmap? Actual work being done, devs talking about what is being done right now. Why do we have to wait for such a long time to finally hear Chris talking about it? I mean, don't get me wrong, I enjoy every time Chris is up there talking to us. I find always that very enjoyable because, he's the man, right? But still, nevertheless, I find it, again, unfortunate that we had to wait for this long, October 10th, the anniversary, to finally have an update about that roadmap that is not even coming for, it seems, quite some time, right? And Mr. Retobor here in the chat says that he would be interested in Squadron roadmap more. I think both will be fine. I think that the new roadmap is going to talk about both because they're talking about different tasks, right? Rather than actual quarters with objectives for the quarters, from what I believe, right? It's just going to focus about tasks. So it probably is going to talk about the Squadron 42 updates as well.
System spectrum. The various like IEA pages or all the sort of stuff that we do, or even those sort of fun games that we do when we do a spaceship or something sometimes. That all requires engineering. I mean, there's a pretty large team at Turbulent. I think we're close to 50 people, focusing on just our stuff there. And, we've got to fit them in the priorities because we've got a whole bunch of stuff. Like, do we want to, improve, finish off Spectrum properly? Do we want to make the how you do a pledge or a shot, make that flow better, or how about the
did I hear that properly? 50 people at Turbulent working on the stars. That is a lot of money, guys. That is going for all the Spectrum. That is a lot of money.
ship matrix, make the ship matrix work better or display better. So all those are sort of engineering and art tasks. So you got to fit that in. So like just when you say roadmap, it sounds simple, but it's not. There's a lot of stuff, and that's one of the reasons why it's taking time. Not that people aren't focusing on doing it, but we want to do it. We want to do
so
it. So
Jakub here is asking me, have they shown much? They've only shown 1 minute and 24 seconds so far, but there's a lot of interesting stuff there in 1 minute and 24 seconds.
We don't want to sort of half-ass it. We're also always, even internally, trying to improve our processes, right? So we're constantly seeing how we get the teams to run better, how we're structuring, because we're a big company, we're spread across quite a few studios, and just the size of it. I mean, I had a Spectrum post where I was answering a question, and I sort of went into a little bit of just the sheer size of what gets managed on development. Like we run an agile process, which we focus on sort of development, doing things in sprints, but we have 58 sprint teams, right? 58. A lot of studios only have 58 people. Each one of our sprint teams, and this is just development. It's not the rest of the company, the marketing, the publishing, the operation.
Yeah, he is talking about. He also talks about that in the letter for the chairman, by the way, which was also out at the same time as this video.
All the rest of QA, all that sort of stuff. Each one of those teams can have 4 to 20 people on it, and they've got their producers and the product owner, the lead or the director, and so it's a huge amount of people to sort of manage and try to keep under a certain vision and communicate it and make sure everyone's on the same page. And so it takes a lot to make sure that we're doing that well, and we're always trying to make it better. How we're managing, how we can see it in a global scale, but also down to the granular scale, and see both those. So it's something we're trying to solve for ourselves as well as solve for everyone out there to sort of see publicly. And I think as in everything, you get better and you tweak things as you go along. And so that's been a big focus of us. We're never satisfied. We're never going, oh yeah, it's good enough. We're always like, how do we make this better? How do we communicate? How do we talk?
Okay, that's great. But we have not talked a lot about. They're talking a lot about the Cloud Imperium, but what can we say about Squadron 42? Because this is the Squadron 42 update, right? So what is there to say?
Better. It's become heightened because of the situation we're in. Now everyone's working at home. Probably going to be working at home, pretty deep into next year, I would guess. And that just means you have to communicate more, right? So you can't walk over someone's shoulder and see what they're doing and give them a little bit of feedback, or run into them in the break room and have a little chin wag with a cup of tea. So I feel like you spent a lot of extra energy in communicating, and so that's what we've been doing internally. We've upped our communication since we've been working at home. We weren't stopped by
Yeah,
what
still, we'll be
happened, but
checking
I
out the
definitely
video
don't
later.
feel like we operate quite as quickly as we did, because we have to spend more time talking and communicating. But we're also thinking about how we can also take that and turn it outside and communicate better with everyone out there as well. And I think that's
There's a
super important.
lot of videos being compiled by people and sent 3 or 4 gigabytes every day, relying on people's internet speed. Have you got it yet? I get a lot of that.
Yes, it's true, guys. It's also true that there's a lot of people who actually work in Europe, and having grown in Europe as well, I can tell you that sometimes the internet is not so fantastic, and if they have to download and upload stuff for work on a continuous basis, this is also a way that may make them waste a lot of time to just downloading and uploading stuff. Something that we maybe not always think of, but it's true that the working from home environment here is playing a part in the fact that a lot of people are wasting time just by simply uploading and downloading because of their internet speed. That is a fact.
A bit more time than it did, but the team's healthy and people are moving forward, and we're still getting builds out for the PU, and we're still hitting milestones in Squadron. So
no, I'm not saying that it's something that makes us take twice as long. What I'm just saying is we've had to transition to focus even more on really being good with our communications, because you sort of have to communicate when you're approached. And we're also thinking about how we can do a better job of communicating externally too. We've been actually upping the internal communications, both executives to the staff and the various project management to the staff, to make sure that we're trying to keep people up to date. And we also want to do more of that externally for everyone out there. That's one of the point of this show. So I think long term, it will be all stuff that you guys will enjoy, and I look forward to seeing you.
Chris, long term, but how long has it been already? 8 years, right? It's been 8 years, and it looks like we're talking about even more, right? Maybe 10, 11, 12.
You guys look at some of the very cool stuff that we're working on. So I will throw this to a earlier version of Brian in the daytime.
See you, Captain Carrot.
So here you go, Brian. Take away the briefing room.
Hope you enjoy it.
All right, well, let's go to the briefing room, right? So it's just there. Let's have a look at what is going on here with that briefing room videos. And here it is, 1 hour and 18 minutes.
From the very start, Chris's remit was he wanted it believable.
The whole focus, obviously, is just on maximum immersion.
A lot of assets are kind of unique, and locations are unique. Everything really is different.
Okay, this is the CAO that they were talking about in the introduction video that we did see in an Inside Star Citizen episode about Squadron 42 as well. Looks like they're also working on Spacescaping 2, which is coming up in the next quarter. It's also going to benefit Squadron 42 as well, obviously.
Welcome to the briefing room, a show fully focused on Squadron 42.
At long last.
I'm Brian Chambers, the VP of Development here at CIG. And today I'm joined by Nick and Ross. So welcome, guys. Good to have you on the call. Can you guys introduce yourself to everyone?
He's back.
Yep. I'm Nick Elms, and I'm the creative director on Squadron 42.
And I'm Ross Wilding. I'm the lead level designer on Squadron 42.
For those that don't know, and because it's a little complex on the design side, can you give a high level breakdown of the design team and how that's made up for Squadron?
The Squadron 42 design team split into 3 actually. It's three teams that work very closely with each other. First being Ross's team, the FPS team, which works predominantly on the ground and gravity base area.
Yes, Ed, I agree with you. Finally, right? The video is finally here.
And we've got all the pew pews.
Yes, that's all the pew pew stuff is down to Ross.
Cool.
The flight team work on the sort of space sections of the game, as you might expect. That includes like dogfighting, exploration, landing, takeoff, all those kind of stuff. Obviously working very closely with the various AI feature teams as well. And then finally, we've got the social team, and they're kind of the glue for all the narrative elements of the game. Building the interactive experience, presenting it to the player cinematically with focus on maximum immersion, as Chris has sort of called out.
Absolutely, and those guys, the social team's been everyone's been busy, but the social team I know has put a lot of effort into how you're interacting with. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, it's great that they're reminding us this is going to be one of the main points of Squadron 42 is not just going to be unlike when you're playing Squadrons, for example, you're playing Star Wars Squadrons, you just when you're not flying your ship in Star Wars Squadrons, it's just a point and click. You're just clicking on the hangar door, you're in the hangar, you're just clicking onto the briefing room, you're in the briefing room. But not in Squadron 42. In Squadron 42, it's going to be just like the PU, but within the Squadron 42 narrative and inside where the action is taking place 100% of the time. And this needs to be engineered, this needs to be done, and it is also taking a lot of time.
And hopefully we'll hear a bit about that later on, but they've had a lot of new tech and things recently to support them, which has been great.
Awesome. So Ross, I know you and the team made some really good progress on Asiato recently. I keep seeing the updates and hearing more and more. So I know
so they started filming that a couple of months ago. Remember, guys, that was in May. So we're gonna see a lot of Asiato because that's what they were showing us back then.
Station, which is set inside the Odin system, which is where 90% of episode 1 takes place.
Okay, all right, we're getting some good information here, guys. I like what I'm hearing. So it is in the Odin system, just like I was wondering if it was in the Odin system. It is indeed in the Odin system. 90% of the action in Squadron 42 Chapter 1 is taking place in the Odin system. All right, we're getting some good information here. That's a good start. 2 minutes and 23 minutes. Good information. Let's keep it up.
We actually visit this location very early on in the game, and it's probably one of the first times the player gets to kind of be let loose, essentially, and kind of have a bit of freedom. And for this reason, we...
All right, okay, good. Should be taking notes, guys. Should be taking notes. So, 90% of the story is in the Odin system. That's one of the first missions that we're going to have to do on our own in Squadron 42.
We've decided to basically keep this station quite small. It's actually one of the smallest locations we visit in the entire game. Not to say that it is small, because we'll show a little bit more of that in a little bit.
Yeah, it is already looking quite big, but it's one of the smallest. That is insane.
Look forward to it. Let's dig in.
So one of the first things we started when looking at Asiato is we wanted to kind of establish its identity. So as you can see here, this is a very early kind of blockout of the exterior, which, as you can see, looks like a satellite dish. And this was something that actually came up in one of the early meetings, and part of this was because it gives us that kind of recognizable shape. The other benefit of it, as I've kind of mentioned, is Asiato is a very early section in the game. We wanted the player to kind of have this kind of sandboxy kind of approach. One of the things that this really helps us do is the cylindrical shape means that we can kind of approach it at any angle. So once we've basically kind of finished,
which is, I like that they talk about cylindrical shape, because we do see some of those stations as well. One of the most famous examples of cylindrical shape type of station is Security Post Corray that you have around Cylin in the Stanton system. And it is true, you can have any type of approach, and it gives the option to the players as of how you are going to make your way into the station, as of whether you are you have to go, for example, to the Kovalex station around Dema, where you only have one entrance and you don't really have a choice. So it's great that they are giving again that freedom. Looks like that kind of freedom is going to be given in Squadron 42, and that's quite thoughtful, I gotta say.
Planning what the kind of shape was and what the style of the facility was, we basically started focusing on the interior section. And one of the things that's really important to us as when we're designing these levels is the functionality and the believability of the space.
By the way, guys, this is not how it is right now. This, as you can see here, early concept phase. What we've seen already inside Star Citizen in May was much more advanced than what we're looking at here. And just for those of you who are not aware.
So even though we are a sci-fi game, we're obviously trying to make these spaces seem as realistic as possible. And one of the ways we do that is we look at a lot of locations in real-world spaces and kind of try to find the identity of what this would be. And then basically kind of convert that. Obviously, we kind of take some kind of creative license with certain things and kind of change things up a little bit and add like more sci-fi kind of architecture to things, but it's still very much about the believability and the functionality, which we'll kind of dig down into a little bit more.
And this is again one of the things that I like so much about this Star Citizen universe, and that's something that I'm feeling right now as I'm playing Star Wars Squadrons. Is indeed the believability, making it as if it is something that could really be in 2950, or in this case, going to be a little bit before here in the story of Squadrons, is a huge part of the immersion that we're getting with this project, and that is what makes it so unique and at the same time so difficult to realize, because there's so much thought and time that is being spent as a result to bring that believability into the action. Hey, Mike Philpin, how are you doing today?
So the first thing that we actually started looking at was kind of the main functionality of the space, and as we kind of said, it's a decommissioned communication center, so mission control was kind of like a key area for this space. So you can see on this
so
map,
we've got a
we've
map,
kind
very
of got
nice.
like a few of the different locations kind of called out. And what we kind of did is we kind of focused on the key areas first. And then once we kind of established those, we started to kind of figure out what other spaces would be in here. So obviously we've kind of got this nice skywalk that kind of goes around partway. And again, this kind of like brings us back to the whole trying to encourage the player to be able to go and explore this space in different directions. So you can obviously
Well,
come
Mike,
in,
we'll
there are
see.
different entrances. Sometimes you could go left, sometimes you go right. You can go through the middle. You can go up to the higher floors, down into the basement.
Yeah.
And you can actually see we have a few different shots of this for basically different floors of the station. And then we basically come to looking at some of the other areas that were initially less important to the space, but we felt would really help with the identity. So this, for example, is an early kind of blockout screenshot of the habitation area. So the idea being in here,
yes.
this would actually be like where the kind of habitation pods are stored. And you can imagine it almost like... again,
I'm sure they are going to take some elements from the PU. Like I would totally see that level here being quite similar to what we're seeing in the Kovale's condo, since this is decommissioned as well.
it's like a beehive where it's basically these things are kind of plugged into the sides, and each person kind of lives inside one of these. And I'm just kind of looking actually if...
Hey, Yube.
No, so we've got some... This is again another kind of screenshot of the habitation section, but actually on the outside, so the more kind of living quarters. And again,
Ed, oh my goodness, thank you so much for the $25, Ed. That is much, much, much appreciated. Juan says, this is sad. We've waited for 6 months for this. To be honest, I was waiting for something a little bit better. Juan, come on, Juan. It's only been 5 minutes. We still have an hour and 13 minutes to go. Maybe I know it's a little bit disappointing. It's not saying so much. Although we did learn. I don't know if you just joined, Juan, but we already know that 90% of the campaign will be in the Odin system. We already know that the Asiado is going to be at the beginning of the campaign. It's going to be one of the first times we'll be alone outside of the stand-in ship. So we've already been given some interesting information, though.
this is just another shot from there. Yep. So the thing I was actually looking for, and I'll come back to a couple of these in a second, I suppose, but was actually these are the habitation pods, basically. So if you imagine back on that previous shot, this is actually what would be kind of fixed into those locations. So if I kind of click back to it a second, you can kind of see that these would nicely fit into these locations.
Yeah.
And the area is expandable as well, isn't it? You can add another one underneath if you had more need for habitation.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, and again, that's the kind of idea of us kind of drilling down into the functionality of these spaces is that this is kind of interchangeable, and
should be a bit better. I'm
we
sorry
can kind
about
of,
this.
like, if this space suddenly needed like more personnel to come and work there, they could basically extend the size of this quite easily.
It's like everything starts, and it's all sort of fully realized.
Yeah, Ted says, for some reason I'm only able to watch this video at 720p, but the Star Citizen video seems to be at very low res. I'm so sorry about this. It should be a little bit better. I also thought it was a little bit blurry. I was like, well, why is this blurry like this? That's because it was in low res, and I'm so sorry, Ted. Guys, please tell me if that's better, but it should be a little bit better.
They're not just a straight sort of shooter map.
Yeah, and this is one of the things that we're kind of driving at, is that a lot of what we want to do in Squadron is have a lot of kind of exploration and kind of feel like you're basically behaving how you would behave in these locations, as opposed to just, you know, this is a game, I'm obviously going to go in, kill some guys and kind of get to the objective. Like I'm just going down a corridor, I'm looking for where the objective marker is taking me. We really wanted it to so players can kind of start to explore these spaces and kind of see how people were living.
As you guys are blocking the spaces out, do you guys, you know, once you get it in that rough state, are you actually going in an editor and running around in it to see how it feels at you know, as far as scale and distances and so on at that point?
Yes, so we're doing that all the time. So despite like kind of what we're saying is obviously function is a very important thing for us in these blockouts. Another aspect is obviously making sure that it still feels good to kind of traverse and that we're kind of sticking to all the metrics and stuff, because the last thing we want is to kind of have it make lots of sense but then not be enjoyable. So it's always like kind of, it takes a lot of time to kind of get that nice balance.
Yeah, and I guess another cog in that balance too is, you know, we have an idea of what intended gameplay could be there, right? Because there's not always a straight line. It's not always we need you to do A or B.
Are they going to talk? That would be funny. I think they talk about intended gameplay. I have a feeling we're going to talk about emergent gameplay, guys, because we've seen a lot of emergent gameplay in the PU. But what about emergent gameplay in Squadron 42 as well? Because, you know, the devs here can obviously control whatever environment they're creating as much as possible, right? But they can never really control what players are going to do, because sometimes they can be a little bit creative, they can be a little bit crazy. How is the game not going to break when players do certain types of action? This is also something that they have to give a lot of thought on as well. If I need to see another shot with printed words to see if I can read. Okay, Ted, we'll see if there's gonna be some. Hey, Brian Murphy, nice to see you today.
Get through and what you need, but you also have to think about the layout and the design and what that gameplay means and the choices the player can make. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've also got, you know, the things that the stimulus that the AI here are going to react to anything as well in here. So if you're in an area where there's no lights, you suddenly switch the lights on, then, you know, you could draw the attention of the AI, and all that kind of stuff is planned at this stage as well.
Yeah, and that's something we can kind of dig into in a little bit, where we basically talk about how we want as much of these environments to be interactive as possible. So we're basically going through them and you see like terminals and consoles, you should be able to kind of interact with them and kind of, you know, read the stuff in there, or you know, obviously a lot of the things are going to be kind of physicalized in there, so you can kind of pick them up, throw them around, move them about, do that.
Well, let's hope that this is going to be the case, because as of right now, unfortunately, it is not. If you go to any type of bunker, if you go to security post Korea, the only screen that is interactable is the one where people put the passkey inside. But any other kind of ring is just, you know, placeholder. So does that mean that these are not going to be placeholders, but actually working screens that are going to be in those stations and those ships? It's hard to believe, but that seems quite huge. Could be a reason why it's taking so much time.
Will kind of feed back into the kind of sandbox nature of the game. So, you know, like if there's enemies in these spaces, you can actually use them to kind of distract enemies, or, you know, even use them as cover and that sort of thing. So
stealth kill and drag the body away, so you don't get seen.
Yeah,
this is something. Speaking of stealth kill, dragging the body away, that is something that is, if it's so important in so many different games. Thinking, for example, of Kingdom Come Deliverance, where you know, the AI is programmed to react to this kind of events. We are also going to get that in the PU and in Squadron 42. And as a player who do enjoy those kind of details, there's again a lot of creativity that can potentially be involved with, you know, body dragging and dragging a corpse, and that it seems to be that it's also going to have its own importance here in Squadron 42 as well. I don't mind if they need to take longer to develop. If Squadron 42 releases with the same type of bugs as the PU, the game will flop and the PU is doomed. We need this to have a AAA feeling, absolutely, Brian. Which is why Chris is also saying that, you know, it's gonna be done when it's gonna be done, right? And it seems that that's the direction that we're taking.
Yeah. So this screenshot we're currently on, again, is just kind of covering some of the high-level blockout stuff, is just us kind of showing that we've kind of got this like skywalk that goes around the outside. And then we also kind of have like the routes into the central section, which is where the mission control is, and the server racks and the gravity drive. But we're also kind of thinking about other ways that the player can kind of go into these locations. So this just kind of shows, as you can see, we've got like these little storage rooms on the side that lead between, but we've also kind of got these like ventilation systems that feed around the station. And the player can actually go into these and then kind of,
Well, of course,
get, like,
right?
visibility on other areas and kind of, again, kind of promote a little bit more stealth gameplay if they want to kind of take that approach.
I guess that would tell me too that not all of those traversal points may be straight in the player's face, right?
Exactly, yeah. So we do actually have some that are kind of like effectively what is our like main route, or what we kind of craft as our kind of like what we call a golden path. But the idea being that there are kind of like lots of routes, and we like the idea that a lot of players won't even know some of these exist until they either see a video online or accidentally stumbles across something. And that's what we want to kind of put into these levels, is as much kind of variety and kind of stuff that kind of keeps figuring out and like learning new things as you're kind of playing it. And again,
this is something that I enjoyed doing a lot in Kingdom Come Deliverance. I played, I don't know, over 200 hours of Kingdom Come Deliverance. It's a single player game only, no multiplayer. And I did the story 3 or 4 times. I mean, and every time it's taking a long time. And that's also what brings a lot of replayability to the game as well. Is you don't always have to do the same thing. You don't have to do things the same all the time. You can have alternative routes. You can have alternative choices, and this is also what I believe is going to be one of the greatest strengths of Squadron 42. We will get to see Mark Hamill on the Skywalk. I want to see Skywalker. Skywalker is dead. That was hilarious, man.
Giving more kind of replay options.
Cool.
So moving on to some of the next images we have, this is when we basically started to get art a lot more involved. So we'd established what the kind of space was, what the point of it was. We obviously know what the intended kind of gameplay is for this space. So at this point we kind of talk to art and kind of say, like, this is what we want. How do we kind of...
Reconnection successful. All right. Seems like it's working. All right. Well, let's keep it going.
Is because it also kind of gives us the identity and the architecture of the space, which, aside from the obvious, from the branding perspective, we also do this because the architecture will obviously play an important part in the blockout as well. So if the walls aren't straight, for example, that obviously affects lines of sight. That the kind of how you kind of feed into different routes.
In the door affects things as well.
Exactly, yeah. So you can just kind of see the two here.
Guys, if you can't hear me, please let me know.
I found that it's incredibly interesting when you look at different levels and different manufacturers and so on throughout the game. And to that point, with the different architecture and the style, right? It lends itself to have a certain feel within certain areas, which then lends itself to even certain types of gameplay and so on. So it's cool to see the spread that's out there and the level of detail and attention that's put to each thing, even like, the Habs architecture matching, the doors and so on.
I was going to say, it's interesting, the Asiado, it also sort of manufactures some of the comms relays in the Odin system as well, and you kind of got that architecture echoing through those, obviously, in a sort of scaled down step.
Yes, I was thinking about that too, right? Do we see some Asiado stuff in the PU as well? And we do all those comm arrays that we have around moons and planets are also called Asiado as well. So it's actually from the same brand, and we're going to see the same architectural design and all the same details here in that larger communications array, which is going to be kind of like the hero zone, or the hero station of all comm arrays. It's gonna be weird, right? If you've done a lot of comm array missions, or disabled, or put online some of those comm arrays in the verse, right, in the PU, it's going to feel a little bit weird to have that giant one in Squadron 42. I don't know what you guys think.
Because those things are largely unmanned, apart from the odd engineer. So yeah, like you said, the manufacturers play a big part in this.
Yeah, and another thing as well is like the architecture is very important, just because, like, for example, with Asiado, it's obviously a cylindrical shape. So what this also means is, like, what you can do in the game is you can obviously go to a terminal and you can actually download map schematics to your mobiGlas. But if, say, you didn't know to do that, or you didn't want to do that, you obviously want to kind of encourage like little kind of things in the environment that encourage the player to kind of.
Now, that's very interesting what he just said here. Being able to download maps that you're going to have access to in your mobile OS, which is a reference, again, to something that Jared did show us. I think it was a year or 2 years ago, when when they're working on actual 3D maps, 3D representations of our locations, whether in the Verse or Squadron 42. Here, they are telling us that this is something that we'll have access to in Squadron 42, and it's great because this is basically the first update that we have on 3D maps or just actual maps since Jared talked to us about that in Inside Star Citizen.
Figure out where to go, or kind of try and figure out where they are in the space. So having this kind of cylindrical shape that almost like gets like the left wall or the inside wall is always the smaller of the two. That certainly helps us kind of like establish this sort of stuff. And when we also look at the branding as well, we actually have several locations across the game where they are, kind of like they're different locations, but they're branded by the same kind of company. So it helps us kind of identify certain elements as well and kind of give like level of familiarity to certain things.
There you go, right? Telling us about
some more concepts this time
about Asiado in the Verse and Squadron 42.
The terminals, like again with Asiado being a communication center, the mission control stuff was very important to us. So this was one of the very early kind of concepts that we did. Here you can start to see like very early 3D versions of them, which were actually placed into our
wow, that's going to be a lot.
This is kind of like somewhere between like early white box and kind of moving towards like having their first pass on the space.
Mm-hmm.
Again, you can just kind of see a bit more. This you can clearly see. Obviously, the lighting outside has had a bit more attention at this point. Again, a few more consoles, just kind of showing their relationship into the actual space. And then here we can kind of see that once we've kind of established kind of like the main kind of architecture for certain things, one of the things Art will go away and do is start to kind of build like kit pieces, what you can see here. So these are like essentially pieces of corridor or like strips and doorways and stuff that we can then take and kind of like go over.
It's interesting to see how we see that in 2D first,
to have more,
and then coming up to life in 3D.
So when we actually go into our spaces, we do obviously try to consider the shape and the architecture as much as possible very early on. But once Art kind of come in and give us that initial pass as well, we very instantly see like the shape and the identity of the space really come to life, basically. So finally, we have this this comparison that kind of shows like blockouts of the initial space, and then ultimately what they've turned into in the final version, or at least our final Art pass.
I like what I'm seeing. Do you guys see that comparison between before and after? This is great. This is how it's gonna be in Squadron 42, looking very impressive. Again, I think that was Mike who said that it's going to be empty, right? Similar to what we have in the PU, I am afraid. Nevertheless, it does look quite overwhelming and impressive, which is what I want to feel when I'm playing Squadron 42. Shayla says, yep, Squadron 42 could get out clean. It's Star Citizen's biggest boot to get new players and good PR, absolutely. Absolutely, I think that a lot of players are going to get Squadron 42 first, and then they will want to expand the experience in the PU as well.
As you can see in some of these sections, the final art is very true to the original blockout, which is obviously something we tried to do because once it's in blockout, we're obviously testing it a lot. We're kind of playing.
Oh, this is what they were showing in Inside Star Citizen. Like, there's a whole section of the station that is going to be covered like that because it's about to be decommissioned. Not decommissioned yet, but soon, right? And that's why you have this contrast between the working station on the one side and the other side, which is entirely covered and basically closed, which is obviously going to give a lot of opportunities for players if they want to sneak around, as they said before.
Certain areas and seeing if things work, puzzles kind of make sense. So kind of trying to trace over that as much as possible is quite an important factor for us because we can kind of get a good feeling for how it's going to play before we kind of sink too much art and resource time into the final version. So yeah, you can kind of see here that this up until this point is very kind of close to what we actually had.
Wow, look at all these panels here. This is the station that can open and close, right? And And this, just look at the size of this thing. I like that they're showing us those shots, because it really gives us a better idea of the scale of those assets that they're working on.
Yeah, it's really interesting seeing the main shapes, if you will, still exist, and then with that next pass, getting that further level of detail, you get more of the visual identity that's in there. You get more of the.
Speaking of visual identity, there is a vibe of comma rays here in that station compared to the commas that we have in the PU. That's true. That I mean, I don't know. Please tell me in the chat down there who regularly goes to comma rays in the PU. I do, because sometimes they get disabled. There are missions, and I get that vibe here.
The sense of how the space will feel, per se, with adding color and lighting and atmosphere and so on.
Exactly.
I mean, we have super regular syncs with the art guys, obviously. The designers work sort of very closely with the art team.
Yeah, and the again, like the lighting plays a huge part. Like, so in some cases, these are actually, there's not much more art detail in the final version. It's just a lot of it is kind of done with lighting as well.
Lighting, yes. We've had a lot of segments talking about lighting as well.
So
it's
something
true that
you
it
can
makes
kind of see in like the second half
a
of this
huge
video,
difference
actually, is
too.
that not all locations are kind of like as true to the blockout in the final version. And part of this is because, for one reason or another, as we've kind of tested stuff, we've just felt that it wasn't quite right, and we've wanted to kind of change it and address certain features. So you can see here, for example, the initial blockout space was quite wide, and we wanted to kind of funnel the player and try and encourage them a little bit less to use this main route, and perhaps use more of a kind of stealthy approach if they wanted to enter the space, which we're kind of moving into now. And again, you can kind of see that this space...
Why is there a dead body here? That's hilarious. Do you guys notice the dead body here?
Space is quite claustrophobic, quite mechanical heavy, and then in the final version, we've opened it up to kind of have like light from outside kind of filter in a little bit more, and just kind of make it a bit more breathable, basically.
Now, when some of those decisions are made, then I know it's an iterative process, but it's about getting in and reviewing and understanding what the main goals are, and looking at the architecture and the mood and the lighting and all those things coming together.
Yeah, basically. I mean, that's a large combination of it. And in some cases, as I said, it's kind of gameplay driven, and the fact that it's like, oh, well, this doesn't actually work for what we hoped. In which
look at that. They have also the uniforms. Are we going to be... That would be so fantastic. Can you imagine that we sneak in that station and we get into that room where we'll be able to take some uniforms and blend in as a local worker? If they give us that possibility, wouldn't that be even more awesome? I feel like this is what we saw, kind of similar to what we saw in the demo last year, and it seems that we're gonna have also that as well in Squadron 42. Awesome. Jericho, aucun problème. Merci d'être venu. À bientôt.
Which case we'll go in and we'll change it.
I spoke in French.
And in other cases, it's just we've blocked something out, and it, like, again, when we're kind of doing it very early on, like the art guys have gone in there, they've obviously got a lot more reference material and stuff, so there'll be some cases where like a shape just doesn't quite work for a believable space, and in those cases we basically say, okay, well, we need to change the layout a little bit to kind of accommodate.
That's the artificial gravity.
Narratively, we pretty much cater for what the player does as well. So if the player goes in there all guns blazing, then the whole base is going to be on alert. If you go stealthy, then maybe you get to pick up tidbits of information here and there, especially if you're in like a crawl space or something.
How long are they talking about the SCA though here?
No, that's really cool seeing, that gives everyone a glimpse of kind of the history of it, right? And I do remember seeing early
FPS gameplay later
on a whiteboard on paper of what it could look like, and it was very close to that first satellite image that you showed.
Yeah, so I think obviously we've kind of shown a little bit of the kind of early stuff, so I think what we can actually do now is bring up the level in the editor. Okay. So this is basically Asiado inside
Non, je ne suis pas français,
as you can
Benus.
kind of see where it's based in the Odin system. We've got a nice backdrop of the coil over here.
Okay, wow, whoa. The coil has definitely changed a lot. Look at that. We can definitely see the difference between what we saw in the vertical slice and the brand new volumetric cloud technology that is going to come probably with spacescaping in 3.12 as well. That coil here is much different than anything that we've seen before. Looks like the Aceto station is going to be quite outside of it as well. Good, giving us a glimpse of what will come further down the line in the campaign. Very nice.
And again, you can kind of see as we kind of approach it a little bit more, the kind of satellite dish style that we were going for. So right now the petals are kind of like tucked into each other, but I believe these can all actually fold out.
Wait,
there's
are
the
we
dish
going
here.
in live?
We're going in live, yeah.
We're going in live. Okay. Hold on, Nick.
Anything could happen.
No,
It
no,
could,
that's
yeah.
cool.
So-
It's awesome.
So one of the things before I actually drop into the actual lower levels is I wanted to kind of show a little bit of the on the top of the dish essentially. So something we'll kind of get into in a little bit in a minute is a lot of the entrances, or most of the entrances we've kind of designed, are on the underside of the dish, and this was a kind of conscious choice that we made because I believe in the blockout video we showed slightly earlier, we actually had like this crow's nest, for example, with a hidden entrance in the top that would allow you to come down. But we felt it was just a little bit too obscure and a little bit out of the way, so we basically removed it and kind of changed
And it
that
was
location.
actually, yeah. How long is that thing?
But something
500
that's
meters,
really
right?
kind of cool in these. This location is basically you could actually get out of your ship at this point. You could obviously EVA up close to these windows, and you would actually see like the AI kind of walking around in here, and you could kind of like, move
Yeah, but if we do
around,
that, the AI is going to see
plot
us,
kind
right?
of where some of these enemies are, and then just basically figure out
Knock on
how
the
you're going to
glass,
tackle this situation.
wave.
You could do that, yeah.
Draw a little
again,
happy face.
No, I would do that with sniper rifle and look in the scope here if there was anything, but I would not go that close. That should be a little bit risky. I don't
It's
know.
foggy outside, you know.
Yep.
just breathe on the glass and then dive because you realise you've not got your helmet on. So yeah, so the main kind of aspect of this is the underside essentially of Asiado. So you can kind of again see this.
So actually, we're just going. So all of that huge asset here is pretty much decoration, right? But the place where the action will be taking place is that dish here, maybe this part, eventually. So it's not that big, but it's so interesting how big it looked like from the inside.
The sort of circular nature of the shape of the space, and again, the player has kind of like, they can get out of their ship, they can fly their ship around here, they have like full freedom to kind of explore this place as they want to. One of the things we wanted to kind of do is have like a few kind of key entrances. So the thing that we will kind of call out as part of the mission flow is the hangar.
Okay,
and
there's a
that's kind
hangar.
of like
Where?
what we're
Where's
kind
the
of
hangar?
drafting as the main entrance into this space, and that's also how typically people using this space would enter and exit this area. But we also have a couple of extra.
Maybe not the best route if you're going to go the stealth way.
No, well, exactly, yeah. So obviously, when we kind of go into the hangar, we would have kind of the.
I don't do stealth. The Eradicator prefers a straight
kind of
fight.
loading up vehicles and kind of like flying them in and out. So if you're trying to avoid being kind of spotted in this space, then, like I said, going into the hangar isn't really a good option.
Yeah.
So one of the locations we actually do have, and I'll slow down the movement a little bit, is this. So
Okay. Where are we
as
going?
I kind of
here?
mentioned previously, we have we had the crow's nest, which didn't really work, especially because it was so long. So we actually now have this kind of mini.
So we can enter
suppose
here
it's like a
from
reverse crow's
below.
nest,
Okay, in EVA.
You can actually fly up here, and again, you kind of like a little door. Come inside. We have an airlock.
In
so you
EVA,
can go-
you're spacewalking, aren't you? At that point, you've left your ship.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So this would all be an EVA. You would come into here. You would cycle the air and the gravity.
Well, I like
this
that they're
point, you
showing
can
this
kind of
in
then
this
enter
video
into this
because I
space,
mean,
which basically brings.
how could we have guessed, right, that we could have entered there from that particular point? So that's cool. People who would have watched this video in 2 or 3 years when Squadron 42 will finally release will remember. Oh yeah, I watched that very first briefing room. I know how to get inside.
Brings us into the server room. So we'll come back to this space, but for now I wanted to kind of zoom back out. And I wanted to show the habitation area. So when we were kind of looking at the blockout images before, you could kind of see this sort of space, and like I said, the kind of honeycomb beehive shape. If we kind of fly in, again, I'll lower my.
Oh, nice.
We kind of look down into this space now. You can kind of
It's
see that
looking very
obviously all been
clean.
arted up, and there's
Clean
a
and
bunch of these that kind of
cozy. Yeah,
some
these
of them
hubs
closed and
definitely
kind of
look a
sealed up
little
the
bit
outside,
bigger.
so that they're saying that there may not be habitation pods attached at this point, but additional ones could be added at any time. Then the doors are opened up, and then we also have some that are actually in here. And we
Okay.
actually have, like people starting to kind of have like their personal effects and so on, and we can kind of see if we zoom in a little bit.
Wow. Okay. Is this? Can you imagine like if this is actually these are live indications of what is going on in the game, so we can know which one is open. We can have a guess when the NPC is going to come back to sleep.
Try and get the camera up nice and close. No. You can kind of see almost like people's kind of like staff rotors and stuff, and to an extent,
Half-eaten
like
meal on the side.
That's a prop. It's got to be a prop, right? It's not going to be for real. I can't
Yep.
believe it.
so.
But it is. I
again,
mean,
like,
it's a good thing to point out to to that level. We build things that have functionality, right? So as you guys are building this from the ground up, these the screens, the consoles, and so on, they serve a purpose. They majority of them can be interactable. There'll be cause and effect. You'll
Absolutely.
push, yeah.
Everything. I mean, like the gravity room that Ross sort of touched on before. Any structure like this, it's got gravity in it. It'll have a generator. You can potentially go down. Switch it off, whatever, and there's cause and effect. It's like everything in the game. It's all sort of based on a sort of reality that we have for Star Citizen.
Yeah, we've even got like post-it.
What about those post-its? Are those post-its going to actually give us some clue of what? Can you imagine like that? 4, 5, 6, 7. Well, maybe not this one, but remember LODS, LODS, L capital L minor O capital DS. Can you imagine if that is a password you have to input somewhere in the station, and the clue is just here?
Notes near, maybe these are like codes for lock safes or something.
There
that we
you
have
go,
lying
right.
around, or maybe they're just random
That's
digits.
that's some like artist's personal pin code or hidden message, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's
Very likely.
Secret Morse code. So now I just have to try and remember which is the right door out of here. So I think it's this one. Yep.
All
So
right.
this kind of brings us out into the main kind of living quarters of the station. So
Which
again,
is
like they would
kind of
kind of sleep in
abandoned,
those
right?
pods, and they would obviously kind of socialize and kind of have like meals and stuff in other areas, because as you can kind of tell, the habitation pods aren't very big. Maybe obviously if people want quiet time and stuff, but for the most part, I would kind of expect people to kind of come into these mess halls, and again, you can start to see that, as you said, kind of half-eaten meals, of kind of people have been prepping stuff, and
Some of those
been
props
kind
that
of
we've seen in the
abandoned.
PU as well.
So
There's
one
no
of the things,
table with blood on it from a xenomorph or anything that's come out of anyone's chest or anything, I hope.
no, nothing like that just yet, but
Not yet.
you never know.
Not yet.
And one of the things, like right now, obviously a lot of these props are just kind of like placed in there, but we imagine that when players kind of come into these spaces, that a lot of these things will be kind of physicalized, and you can actually pick them up, obviously,
Yeah.
throw things around the room. There'll obviously be certain things to kind of interact with.
Or maybe just see there's a bowl full of soup. Maybe eat that soup, or all those beans.
Things to read. You can kind of see over here, like people have been playing cards. I'm sure you can obviously pick the cards up, and the baseball bat and so on. Let's see where this leads us.
There's a huge amount of props.
So basically,
guys.
once we kind of come away from the habitation, we start to move in towards what is essentially the skywalk. And I'll actually take this route.
Oh, that's what Ted was
So we
talking
kind of saw
about.
some of this in the
Having a Mark
video
Hamill on
very
the
early on.
Skywalker on the Skywalk, right?
As you can see, it's it does look very clean, and like there's obviously some stuff that's been kind of stacked up here. One of the things we're still kind of in the process of doing is kind of adding dressing to some of these elements, so you can kind of see like we will be kind of adding more kind of elements into these rooms and spaces, and part of that is something that will change, and it will be an ongoing process, very close until release. And that's because basically we'll be in here, we'll obviously be working, we'll have AI like running around and going into
So the station will not be abandoned. There's actually going to be AI around that.
nice kind of
See,
level
more
between
information
these.
here.
This is all traverse.
I originally thought that this would be an empty level with no AI, but there's actually really going to be AI around that you're gonna have to interact with or eventually avoid.
Possible by the player right now, yeah.
Yeah, so like I said, this is obviously an editor, so if I hit Control G, for example, I'm I'm actually in game now. So again,
I take it you've switched the AI layer off, so we're not into a world of chaos.
Yeah,
Halo
so
gunfire. Yeah.
so right now this is just kind of like it as it's kind of intended, like from a visual and artistic
Yeah.
standpoint. Obviously, the level is fully traversable. Doors all work and everything. So if I come down here.
Wow,
But
this is
one
how
of the
it
things,
looks
yeah,
like.
is that
It's exactly
we're
as one
obviously
of
kind
that
of
Star Citizen,
AI
obviously.
is an ongoing process, and
Mhm.
you know, like obviously live demoing it at this point, like anything could happen. So we're just trying to save ourselves a little bit of pain
Yeah.
right now from showing too much stuff, basically. But you can again kind of come into there. You can see a lot of these kind
This
of
is not interactable yet.
like personal effects and things that kind of add to the kind of life of the
Oh
space.
no!
Um,
I thought that it was
you've
being
got, like, more
interactable, but
kind
these
of
are just props.
random codes and stuff that the artists have been putting on the whiteboards. Obviously, be curious to see what's on them in the final game. But and then we kind of move in, like this is the kind of the server room, for example.
And the server room that we saw earlier, from
That's kind
which
of what I
we
said
entered
before
from.
about the telecom exchanges. They've got an inspiration from those, really. They look really cool, but futurized.
Yeah, and these spaces, you know, it does look really cool. And one of the other things that we're quite keen on for a lot of these spaces, as I briefly touched on, is we want to have a lot of kind of interactables and kind of things to do in the environment. So if you imagine you're kind of sneaking through this space, and it's obviously very kind of like there are enemies in here and you're trying to avoid them because you want to take a stealth approach. Something that either you could do or the AI could actually do is actually come over to one of these terminals and then kind of interact with some of the screens and then basically like get access to these server racks, and you could actually interact with them and then have them kind of lower into the floor. And suddenly what becomes like a nice place for kind of sneaking around with the stealth suddenly can become totally exposed with no kind of cover.
Exactly.
And the player can kind of use that to their advantage, and equally AI can use that to the player's disadvantage. So
Yeah,
Oh,
that's like I
that's
said
gonna be
before,
fun.
those things will become a stimulus for AI. So even if somebody's in the room next door, you know, they might potentially hear that and go, you know, what the hell's going on next door?
Very cool,
Exactly,
very
yeah.
cool.
Check
I
out.
gotta tell you guys, when I do those playthrough, there's not gonna be any stealth. I'm not a stealth guy. So I'll be entering through the hangar, I'll be shooting everything, and I'll be asking questions after.
and speaking of next door,
I guess
this
as a
is
player, that would make me mad if I think I'm being all stealthy and I flag the AI, hear me. Next thing you know, all my cover disappears
If
to
you're
the ground.
if you're
I'll be
switching
like,
heavy machinery on in the room next door, to them,
yeah, that's
and
true.
this is the thing as well, is that and this is kind of what moves into our steps as we kind of move forward towards release. Basically, is we're trying to basically get the AI to kind of do stuff that kind of feels like cool and original and obviously like compelling to the kind of experience, but at the same
Yeah.
time not kind of like the player thinks they're doing okay and they're like perfectly stealthing around and then suddenly everything disappears. So if we just kind of move
Well,
back into
that's
this room,
good to
for
know.
example,
That's good information
you
to
know,
know.
maybe like a guy's kind of working on, let's say, the terminal that's
Now,
over
the
here.
question is, if they say everything is interactable with, what if we shoot those servers? What if we shoot those servers? Are they going to blow up? So that's what I want to know. I don't want to hide. I don't like this sneaking around. I want to blow stuff up.
He comes over, you know, maybe he's got his back turned to you and he's kind of like he's working on here, and then he lowers just one or two of these terminals. But let's say you're kind of sneaking up behind him, and then suddenly the thing you're planning to use as backup cover disappears. It then, because he's got his back to you, it gives you a couple of seconds to kind of go, okay, well, I'm going to hide behind this one instead.
Yeah.
As opposed to just, you know, or you could obviously try and take him out quickly.
Yeah, that's what I would do. I would totally rush
And this
towards
is,
the
again,
guy and
something
take
that-
him out.
Kind of we feed into with our next kind of step, which is obviously kind of balancing the AI out and trying to find out like how much noise is too much. Because something else that we want to do is, like in this environment, for example, I would expect it to be quite noisy, like just in general. So
Yeah.
we actually want it to be so that noise in an environment affects how noisy the player can be. So if you're obviously kind of in an engineering kind of space and there's loads of machinery going on around you, you would expect the player to kind of be able to walk around fairly normally and not, you know, be detected or kind of be heard. Whereas if we're kind of in a space that's like really quiet and like you can hear every footstep, we would expect the AI to kind of pay attention to you a lot easier. So it's,
I mean,
it's also
even-
about reading them.
sorry, I was going to say, even if you've blown your cover, I mean, the AI don't all sort of run after you like you know, a football team or whatever. You know, if they know you, they'll sort of hunker down and you know, take sort of ambush places and things like that. So you the whole focus is on the AI being believable in these spaces.
Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly, and that's something we'll kind of cover actually in a little bit when we talk a little bit more about the plans for the AI and stuff. But here we can actually see the gravity room, and this is basically the gravity drive that's
There you
essentially
go. So
kind
what
of
if
powering
we
all the
what if we shoot this? Is this going to make everybody go in EVA? That will be also cool. That will also be a game changer as well. Some of the NPCs might not be prepared for that. Absolutely, Ted, you got it right. I prefer a straight fire to all the sneaking, right? Just like Hansel. That's exactly how I am in the in Star Marine. In the PU, that's how I'll be playing Squadron 42 as well.
gravity inside the station. And when we're kind of talking about like interactions and stuff as well, this is quite cool, because if we come into here, we can actually come to like, this is intended to be like one of the main kind of terminals for the entire station that kind of controls a lot of the power elements. And something, if I actually go this way,
Where are we going now?
back through this space. I think the door's sealed actually because it's this is the airlock, so I can actually cheat, seeing as we're in editor, and kind of fly down. You can actually see that this is the kind of secret crow's nest that I was
That's
talking
where
about
they
earlier.
entered from.
So if players
gotcha.
were to kind of sneak in this way, they can actually get like a kind of quick early access to these sections, basically.
Okay, well, that's
And
good
again,
to know. I'll
if,
definitely
you know,
remember that.
If a player comes up to some of these locations and doesn't think or doesn't want to try and interact with these terminals, that's totally up to them, and that's, you know, will affect their experience. But for somebody who wants to kind of try and find out another way of doing something, like maybe you can interact with this, and then you could probably shut down the power for like 90% of the station, or, you know, we're still kind of figuring out what happens, like oxygen
Oh, totally
levels
shoot it.
and
Yeah,
so on.
shoot
So
it.
that's
Exactly.
a potential maybe.
That's cool.
But
That
yeah.
opens up so many different avenues as far as how you approach things, and you know, again, as I was saying earlier, cause and effect, right?
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so
Right.
let's present these play spaces, for the players, and they can sort of, solve, almost all of them in any way they want to within the sort of environment, within
Yeah.
the sort of systems and tools that we've spent, a long time developing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this is where the fun part comes in towards the end of development, where we're basically trying to, you know, all these kind of systems come together, and we're basically trying to make them work without causing infinite problems for the
I like
players.
what I say. Apparently, did you hear that, guys? The end of we are heading towards the end of development. That's already reassuring. I don't know if you guys did notice that. Although if I'm yawning, guys, sorry about this. It's 2:42 a.m., almost 3 a.m. So I'm starting to get a little bit of fatigue. So apologize if you see me yawning or my eyes get smaller and smaller.
Yeah.
Or
It's
the
not,
AI.
it's not an easy thing to sort, right? There's so many different variables that you need to balance.
Does it come with
and
bacon?
some intentionally you don't balance, right? Because what stops
Exactly,
somebody from
Maybe we'll
you know,
find
guns
bacon at the
blazing,
mess,
going
man.
in as loud and dirty as they can versus, somebody who wants to do it stealth, or somebody who rides the middle. I mean, it's cool. Each one becomes its unique experience.
Please tell me in the chat down here who wants to do this stealth way and who wants to
Exactly.
kill everyone. I want to kill everyone.
And just again, kind of moving around the station as we kind of seen the skywalks earlier. So this is actually the other side, and something that I kind of talked about at the very start was the fact that Asiado was a kind of like decommissioned communication station, and obviously everything I've shown up to this point is kind of operational and kind of lights on and everything's working. So you can actually see here that this side of the station is a lot more kind of in darkness, and it's kind of been left to kind of rot essentially.
I was gonna say, it looks like they need a good mopping on this side,
Do you?
It's cool having the tarpaulins and the sheets and things over everything as well.
Yeah, and this is something as well that helps us kind of...
Something that we've seen, by the way. Something that we've seen, by the way, also in last year's CitizenCon, right? The whole cloth technology, the cloth that's going to blend into the environment that we are seeing here in Squadron 42 as well. Again, guys, more technology from Squadron 42 that makes it in the PU, but I'm pretty sure that all that cloth blending technology that we talked about last year was originally designed for that particular level and Squadron 42, and it's great to see it finally in footage from Cloud Imperium, right?
Kind of going back to what I was saying about the AI in these spaces, and kind of talking about like the player understanding where they are. So like from here, obviously, aside from the fact you've got this really nice kind of vista looking outside, like just kind of looking at the shot, it's quite obvious where the middle of the station is as opposed to the outside.
Correct.
Even not, because you've just got the smaller radius on the inside.
Yeah, he talked about that
this
before.
Kind of decommissioned side also kind of gives us the opportunity to basically
Yes,
distinguish the
Parker,
two
that's
different
also what
sides
I
of the
like with this
walkway.
video, is that we get
So,
those
like here,
tiny
for
bits
example,
of
you can obviously-
info
this
every
is
now and then,
clearly
right?
a different side to the station from the skywalk that's in decent condition. So there are a kind of multitude of reasons for why we have things like this.
It's cool.
This
It's
would be
really
a
cool
great
to see.
Star
No,
Marine
it's-
level, by the way.
It's really cool to see the progress. I haven't seen it the walkthrough to this extent for a while, and last time I did it, it definitely wasn't this far along.
Yeah, and like even from someone who kind of works on these
Wow,
levels
we
day in,
can
day
see
out,
the
like,
top.
you kind of forgetting a lot of times because you're working in a kind of vacuum or a bubble about the spaces that you're in, and then every now and then you see something like, oh my god, this is actually really cool. Like, I mean, again, just kind of like the visuals on this, like this is kind of in editor, this is me playing it in real time, so
Yeah.
it's not kind of faked in any way. It's really cool. And again, like if I just kind of fly out, you can, like, even with the character still in game, you pretty much can see
Character who doesn't die, by the
everything
way.
essentially.
Awesome.
And just to clarify, I do have God mode on as well, so
It's all right.
that's why I'm
yeah,
not
yeah,
suddenly
yeah.
suffocating.
I kept seeing it pop up talking about your med pin, so I assumed early on you were in God mode. No, it's great to see the progress, though. It's really cool, and it's it becomes a little bit of a, I guess, for everyone, a bit of a history lesson, right, as far as the progress that leading up to where we are
Yes,
today.
but are we going to talk about the Aceto all the
another
time?
thing, which obviously
Please
we're
no,
not going to
right?
be showing anything of this today, but we do have like some environments which are like infinitely bigger than this sort of location. So you can
Absolutely.
imagine like the kind of
Yeah.
work that goes into a space that's this size.
Yeah.
Think of something that's
Well,
sat on an
there's the
entire
Shubin
planet, for
mining
example.
station, which is much
Exactly.
bigger.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's the other thing that we really want to do with Squadron as well, is kind of make everything like handcrafted. Like, we don't want things to be kind of very procedural. Like, we're really trying to, even down to like the art and the way we're kind of tackling stuff, is it's very much like a lot of assets are kind of unique and locations are unique. So rather than kind of saying, oh, here's like a base core set of assets and we're going to kind of reuse them with a few hero assets kind of thrown in every now and then, we're really trying to make every space like its own kind of identity. And you're not going to get like halfway through the game and suddenly go, oh, I've seen that prop or that crate in like 15 levels already.
These are very bold statements here that are being made, because this is obviously not what we are seeing in the PU right now. But here, if I understand very clearly what he said, every part of Squadron 42 is going to be handcrafted, handmade, and is going to feel unique compared to other places of Squadron 42 itself. That is a huge amount of work that is being done right now, and that could be another reason why it's taking so much time.
Yeah, exactly.
Everything really is different.
Yeah.
Yeah, you'll recognise
I mean,
manufacturers though, but
Yeah, the attention to detail. I mean, you can always, I've always been surprised year after year on what we're doing and how we're pushing and where we're pushing. But I think in the end, it all pays off, right? You have this sense of believability. We're putting the focus and getting these accurate play spaces, and on top of that, if we can have that sense of every single asset being handcrafted, I think it just adds more and more to that realism and believability of the player interacting in that space. That's cool.
Exactly. So
It's good stuff.
the thing I was going to also show was just basically how we're kind of like working on the next step, and again, without kind of like showing the AI too much, kind of playing it in the game.
Oh, okay,
I
what are we
wanted to kind
looking
of
at
basically
here?
bring up
Okay,
some
this
map
is
stuff
still
and
the
how we
same
kind of tackled
station.
kind of like working out where the AI is going to go. So you can see in this screenshot, this is kind of an isometric kind of angle of the station, where you can kind of see the different tiers. You can actually see part of habitation here. We
So
don't
that's
actually
that gravity room right in the center is where we just were, right?
exactly, yeah, just down
Okay.
there.
Yep, cool.
And then this is the kind of the mission control section. We do actually have the hangar off to the left, and the reason why this isn't here is because we're still kind of like making some tweaks to the hangar, so we're still kind of like finalising some of the areas in that. But then if we kind of cycle through again, you can kind of see we've got
the disc is the skywalk, is it? Yeah.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, so you can kind of see, as we've already kind of covered, there are 3 main kind of tiers to the station. And then what we do is we essentially break it up into zones. So you can see here we've kind of got like zone 1, which is the kind of green side, and then
zone
which
2
this would basically be like the regular skywalk that we've seen.
Thank you so much, man.
And then zone 3 over here, for example, is like the decommissioned skywalk, and then you've also got habitation over here. Zone 2 is the engineering stuff, and again the gravity section with the server rooms. And then we've got kind of zone 4, which is like the very top deck and the kind of mission control section. And the reason why we kind of break these up is something that kind of Nick touched on earlier, was actually for AI and how they kind of like behave in the environment. So for example, we were toying around with like AI placement. So this is in no way kind of like the final plan. This was just like a recent kind of iteration of what we would have done to kind of plan out like AI patrols, how the sort of behavior.
Is this how they really put it? Yeah, no, come on, it's just a schematics.
And for example, we would say that, say in zone 1, you kind of approach this character and they spot you and they're an enemy. They would probably obviously alert their teammates. What would then happen is these 3 guys would kind of move over and kind of support them in combat, and suddenly the player is like 1 versus 4.
Okay, we're gonna have a little of combat here.
But what we wouldn't want to happen
is
everyone in the station to run to this point. And that is for obvious reasons, basically. But I mean, aside from that, like it's just not realistic.
All
like
right, so we've got an enemy down there running, just like in Security Boss Corray.
Like if there's security on a certain location, you would expect a couple of guys to go and check it out. As
it's also hiding, just like in SPK.
The whole force to kind of go and check a certain area and then leave the rest of the station exposed, basically.
Could it ever get elevated though that zone 1's trying to handle it, and then just for proximity, zone 4, could zone 4 or zone 3 join in, right? If it gets a certain amount of craziness, if it's really loud and stuff's blowing up and those audible cues,
So that's something we're still kind of like experimenting with at the moment. But what might be nice, for example, is if you're in here, you kind of fight these guys and they're down to the last man and he's kind of on his own and he's struggling. Maybe he radios for support, and then in that case we could say the nearest kind of next zone. He's basically requesting help. And then something else which we've not kind of decided yet for this location, for example, but something we may do in other locations is, if an enemy or a group of enemies are struggling, perhaps they call in like dropship support, and then an extra wave of enemies could kind of actually come to the location.
Nice.
And in that case, we can obviously kind of.
So if that's actually the case, we're gonna have to watch out for the hangar, obviously.
Could end up with enemies coming in from behind him that he thought he'd already dealt with.
Exactly, and again, like we obviously we're kind of working on some of the systems at the moment, but there will be systems that also allow players to kind of like give themselves a little bit more of an advantage to kind of tackling some of these situations as well.
That's a lot. That's chunky. We've been talking for a while. It's really cool to see the progress though. How are you and the team feeling about it so far? About where it's been and how it's come and where you're at.
Something that I find surprising is, why is Brian Chambers saying that it's cool to see the progress? I mean, he's supposed to be the boss of Squadron 42, so won't he know the actual progress in advance? He seems to be surprised also as well. That seems a little bit off. I don't know what you guys think.
Honestly, it's like at the moment, I feel like everyone's starting to get quite excited about everything, because it's obviously in the past when you're kind of in blockout, and especially when you're developing a new game that's kind of the tech is kind of moving along with it at the same time. There's a lot of kind of unknowns, and you're kind of planning and you're setting things up with the assumption of how something's going to work. But we're kind of past that first hurdle, and we're kind of getting into the stage now where it's kind of like we know what the spaces are. We've obviously been developing them for a while. Now we know what the mechanics are, and they're starting to come online. And
plus we've got some gorgeous art as well now to run around, which always really helps.
Exactly, yeah.
That's cool.
I mean, the art is obviously stunning, and the thing like I'm most grateful for this video is I can take all the credit for the artwork that's been shown.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you taking the time, Ross. I know you and the team are all busy. Like I said, I keep saying it's really good to see the progress, and I'm glad you had time to pull some stuff together so we could show it off
I
to
mean, it's
everyone.
nice to see the SCA though, but
it's-
I want to
it's
see
great
other
to
stuff
show.
in Squadron 42, right?
Yeah,
So
thanks, Ross.
Yeah, see you later.
As we said right at the top of the show, the social team have got some good progress that they've made on the interrupt tech, and I think we're going to bring Phil in, aren't we, to chat through that and show some
all right,
more,
let's see what the social
videos.
team is going to
Hey,
show.
guys.
Hey, how you doing,
Hey,
Phil?
Phil.
Yeah, I'm good. I've been lurking for the last half hour, so that was great.
You
I
saw
enjoyed
some
it.
of that.
Yeah, hard act to follow.
Awesome.
Even the
Yeah.
Well,
personal
thanks for
armor of
joining
the soldiers
us.
are different.
For
Yes,
those that
Dario,
don't know
you're
you,
right.
can you introduce yourself to everyone?
Yeah, my name's Philip Meller, and I'm lead design.
Hey, JT, how are you?
SC42. And my current focus has been on interrupt tech.
Awesome. So
Yeah.
I
Show us something?
assume, yes, I was just going to say, hey, what do you want to show off today? But I assume you're going to jump in interrupt tech, so let's go for it.
Well, yeah, I'll talk you through. Start of the year, social team have been doing a big push on scene implementation. So at the end of came to the end of last year, most of our scenes were in, but they were in a base fashion. So basically, with the scenes, the player has to play ball, and if the player does anything, the scenes kind of fall apart really. So the big push is on the interstitials. That's the Idris Stanton.
Yeah, so that's what they were talking about here. Emergent gameplay from the player's point of view. What if the player wants to do something crazy? What if the player, as he said here, what if the player doesn't want to play ball? It seems that what we are going to see here are those eventualities. This is going to be, I think this sounds like it's going to be, again, I haven't watched it. I'm watching this live, like really live with you guys. It's 3 in the morning. It's 3 in the morning here. It sounds like an exciting segment. Let's see.
Being the player's base ship for a good chunk of the game. So I'll give you a bit of background on the actual Stanton. It's a military variant of the Idris. It's got a 2-ship complement of 2 Gladiuses, 80-person crew, which is a lot more than the standard Idris crew. So
Okay, there it is. Look at that beauty here, the Stanton Idris M. 80 crew here. That means 80 NPCs are going to be working inside that ship as it moves around the map, as it progresses throughout the game, and you will be among all of them. All interactable, really?
That's 80 people to interact with, and it's not just faceless crew. Everyone's got a personality on this ship.
Is that 80 including yourself?
Yep.
Oh, so
80
79.
included. Yeah, so that's engineers, deck crew, bridge crew, medical, utility, you name it, they're all there.
Look at that. That's the bridge here of the Idris frigate, and that phrase seems to be flying pretty fast in that field of debris.
From the very start, Chris's remit was he wanted it believable. He didn't want.
It's more than a javelin, says Admiral Griffiths.
Tropes
Look at that. There's the captain. I forgot his name. That's the captain that we see here, that we saw in the vertical slice. Looks like the map. Look at that. The circle map is finally working, at least from what we're seeing here in this footage. This is looking great.
With a scene when you interact with someone, it's an easy trap to fall into. You cut to a third-person camera, or you funnel them. You'll shepherd them into a certain area, then you'll lock them in. Chris didn't want that. That was his remit from the start. I don't want that. So that was it's quite the challenge. So it all starts off with
I really wonder how many times Chris said, "I don't want that. I don't want that. Do it again," right? That's what they're talking about here.
Script. So Dave and Will, they had to go and when they were writing the script, they had to keep in mind we needed opportune points during the conversations that the player could intervene or break out of or abandon. So that had to be in mind. So that was a challenge for them, and then they had to write. It was wild lines after that. So they had to give us lines which could play out when the player was doing this. So in the middle of a conversation, player walks away. They have to give us wild lines, like for pretty much every character. Where are you going? What are you doing? I thought we were talking. So that kind of
exactly.
Stuff. Yeah. And then it was. Sorry, Nick.
I was going to say the whole focus obviously is just on maximum immersion, isn't it? I mean, that's that's been Chris's remit from day one. That you've got to feel like you're actually part of the crew on there, and you're not some disembodied ghost or whatever that can float around. And
yes, that's one of the reasons, guys, why I am really waiting for Squadron 42 is that believability, that immersive experience, being really part of the crew. Of course, it's not going to be for real, it's a video game, right? But feeling that you're really part of that crew, and that you're part of this machine, that you depend on them, but they also depend on you and your actions too. And that is what is going to make this game amazing. I mean, who is my favorite actor? Is asking Admiral Griffiths. I would say, of course, Mark Hamill, Mark Strong. Love Mark Strong. Gillian Anderson also. I like this actress as well. I'm not sure. It's probably not going to be Sandy Gardner. She's also gonna be in Squadron 42. I don't know, man. I don't know.
On the ship.
Oh, Gary Oldman. How did I forget Gary Oldman? Of course, Gary Oldman. Love Gary Oldman.
Everyone reacts to you depending on what you do, even
Yeah,
the scenes
definitely.
that you're not actually part of.
Yeah, no, definitely a big challenge. But and I was looking forward to it, because I'm not a fan of it where you get locked in. Nothing worse than walking around a location terrified of being dragged into a conversation. So yeah, I was looking forward to this a lot. So moving on, PCAP. So when Chris and Hannes did the PCAP, they had to. It must have been tough because they had to keep in mind again, along
What is
with
the
script,
PCAP,
they had
guys?
to give us opportune points to break in and out. So they couldn't have actors monologuing and gesticulating too much. Otherwise it'd make life awkward for us.
Yeah,
But,
I was there
yeah.
during some of the early PCAP shoots, and I do remember some of these. And this was before the system was even mature, and
It
you
was,
could tell it was already in Chris's head, and the writers knew exactly what they were doing. And you'd see some of our top talent just reiterating different lines and variations, and
it must have been tough.
What's the difference between mocap and
a little
PCAP?
bit, yeah.
Yeah.
There's so many hours of PCAP, because of these sequences.
Oh
But I mean, but ultimately, that goal was to get it together, as you say, so you're not locked into a conversation, as Nick said. So you get that extra level and sense of immersion when you're interacting with NPCs wherever you are throughout the game, right?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So you conversate. You can pretty much attack a scene from any angle if you wish.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're not locked in. You can do what you want during the scene. You're not dragged in there. You can actually back off. You can 180, and the AL will react. You'll see in the video later.
Wow. Okay, we're gonna see that in the video.
Some of the
Okay,
reviews
looking
we've
forward
had,
to
I've
it.
had people sort of running over laughing at the amount of trolling, because obviously you can start talking to someone and then start backing away, and they've got to react to like, what the hell are you doing? Why are you that kind of thing? And the laughs in the room are great.
Yeah, no, it's cool. You can do it for hours. Hours of fun doing this.
I hope people aren't going to play the game completely doing
No,
that.
no,
but
Can you imagine you go to the NPC? The NPC is programmed to talk to you. Make him say one word, go away, come back, go away, come back, go away. Starts coming back and then go away. Yes, there's definitely going to be some memes and trolls here, as they said here. If this is really going to happen.
If you're a jackass like me, you can do it. But it's funny because of the personalities on the ship, you can single out certain personalities who rub you up the wrong way. There's like abrasive characters. So with those guys, you can be rude, you can back off. You can do all of that.
Fall foul of the reputation system, though. If you do that, you can upset people too much.
You'll take a hit, but with some of those characters on the ship, it's well worth it.
Okay, so there's if you do that, then your reputation is actually going to take you a hit with those characters. Wow! So each character is going to have its own reputation system.
But so moving on, I'm rambling about the stages, but
no, it's good.
Just to fill you in. So the implementation side. So we have the scene the end of last year. We had the scene in game. So then we have to do like a real focus pass on what we need to do. So it's interrupt points. So you can have an ongoing conversation, two characters talking, and then player can barge in there, and at certain points within that conversation, they can break out and engage with you. So that's a challenge. So you have to find certain points where you're not.
This is a conversation you're not even involved in. I mean, it's two other people in a corridor talking, and then you go and like lurk next to them, and they've got to look at you and reference you believably.
Exactly.
And obviously, maintain the performance as well. So there's a lot of work in that.
Hence
how many times? This must have taken hours upon hours upon hours of motion picture to try to record every single possibility of what players may be able to do with the interactions of those NPCs. This is just insane. Gamer Tester, nice to see you today. Hi, how are you doing?
Rep tech, right?
Yes. Well, interrupt tech,
Oh.
but that's a part of it.
Yeah.
So then we have so then it would like for example's sake, you interrupt a conversation. Then during that conversation, you have breakpoints, and that's points throughout the conversation where you can potentially back off. You can 180. It just kind of break off from the conversation, and they have to adapt to that. So then that's when the wild lines kick in. You know, like, oh, you got somewhere
Yeah.
to be. Then
That
we
was
can
rude, that kind of stuff.
yeah, there's all sorts, yeah. But then the player's given an opportunity to kind of rejoin or can they abandon, you know, and if you rejoin, the NPC's got to pick up the conversation, and if you abandon,
Really?
you know, the NPC's got to go back to pretty much what, gesticulate and go, oh, what the hell, okay, I guess you don't want to talk.
Yeah.
Then they go back to what they were doing.
Some of the cool ones I've seen when we've reviewed these recently are those ones when they do get picked back up, right? I'm close to, you know, somebody has their conversation between two people. I walk in, they acknowledge me, and they turn to me, oh, hey, I remember that thing. And they start telling me a story, and I back away. They tell me a line. I then come forward again, and they're like, okay, all right, so let me pick it right back up. And I think as far as the tech that's there, and I know it's not the easiest thing to do, but when they're put together,
it's not, because what you have to watch out is that they can become very cheesy, you know, very cringy, and that's obviously something that they need to avoid. Now, are they successfully going to avoid? I guess we'll see in the future, but they definitely must be presenting quite a lot of challenges.
They're intended to be. They're seamless.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, that's super hard for the actors.
You
as well,
don't
because they've got to maintain the intonation.
You don't see hitches from the animation. You don't see this. You don't see that. It just it flows and it feels really natural, which is really cool.
Yeah, well, that's it. People spot it straight away.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, if you do it clunky, it's kind of you'll spot it.
And this is
the big
what
challenge.
Chris and you know the writers, when they were doing the PCAP for these things, you maintain the intonation, and you know it does feel seamless. It doesn't feel jarring too much.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so it's not just going to be, as they said, it's not just going to be motion capture. As they said, the intonation also must be perfectly spot on, because again, if it's not, you have a certain intonation, and then the conversation is interrupted, and then you come back and the intonation is wrong. It's as if your action are totally meaningless, right? So that also, there's a lot also that relies on the skills of the director and the skills of the voice actors as well.
Show us then.
So this is Morrow, everyone's favorite engineer. So he's like the ship's gossip. You know, every time you stumble across this guy, he's gossiping about something. So in the start conversation, we have two interrupt points, which I spoke about before. That's breaking into a conversation. Then he turns his attention to you, and then we have, during the following conversation, we have 5 breakpoints. And that's pause, resume, abandon points. So you can do either of those. Mm-hmm. And then we also have the performance based to the left and to the right. So you can attack this from any angle if you want.
That's cool.
Okay.
Just to be fair to the character department, we should say that the character models in this are the basic versions prior to all the sort of lovely polish.
Oh, yeah.
Wait. So they did the motion capture if you are talking to the guy from the left and if you are talking to the guy from the right, obviously from front and behind too. That is insane.
That they lavish.
Are we going to see that?
Yeah.
Yeah, we always hate giving disclaimers. But,
I also want them to Chris
Stauronographers. But yeah, I don't think they are the most up to date. I heard this video may have a little bit of length, but it shows the variety that we have, and although it may even be a little bit repetitive sometimes with the line that's there, again it shows those angles, it shows the timing and so on. So
it's okay, Brian. We've been waiting for the Squadron 42 video for 5 months. It's okay to have a long video.
Yeah, it's a lengthy video, and it's a bit of Groundhog Day in there, but that's the whole point of it. It shows all the different scenarios we've catered for. You know, this is just for a single scene.
Yeah, the level of complexity that there has to be depending on approaches.
Come on,
awesome, let's watch it.
Yeah.
Okay, let's watch it. All right, good. They've been hyping us for such a long time. Okay.
Yeah, the entire face completely rebuilt afterwards. Lieutenant, congrats on the big first mission.
Okay. um, how many of you guys have watched the, I think it was the 2016 or 2017 vertical slice? When you started the video, they're saying Lieutenant all the time. People were calling this video Lieutenant Simulator. And the first thing that we hear, hey, Lieutenant, so it's 2017 all over again, where we're being called Lieutenant all the time. Lieutenant, hey, Lieutenant, nice to see you. And there we go again, right?
Exciting stuff. Lieutenant, you alright?
Oh, did you see the facial expressions that we were living? He's like, hey, excited. He's like, hey, where are you going? Amazing. Yeah, that guy is a little bit enthusiastic for sure. He's like, Lieutenant, nice to see you. It's pretty cool. It's pretty cool though. I like it.
Right, where was I? It must be great to finally feel like a real pilot. And not that you weren't a real pilot before, but now you've actually done something without, well, blowing up. Never mind, I guess.
Never mind. All right, good. Do your stuff. Super cool. All right, we're gonna do it one more time.
Yeah, the entire face completely rebuilt afterwards. Apparently the lieutenant
Oh yeah, he's talking to another guy here. Okay, so that's why he was speaking.
completely different before Vega. Lieutenant! Congrats on the big first mission. Exciting stuff. It must be great to finally feel like a real pilot. And not that you weren't a real pilot before, but now you've actually done something without, well, blowing up. Lieutenant, you alright?
Yeah, I'm back.
Right. Where was I? Speaking of pilots, did you hear what happened to Ishitaka last year? So, we were posted out in some backwater system. Oh, I forget which one. Maybe next. Anyway, we decided to go out drinking at this dumper of a trade station. Real dump. Never mind, I guess.
All right, and this time happened. All right, very cool, very cool.
Entire face completely rebuilt afterwards. Apparently the lieutenant looked completely different before Vega. Lieutenant! Congrats on the big first mission. Exciting stuff. It must be great to finally feel like a real pilot. And not that you weren't a real pilot before, but now you've actually done something without, well, blowing up. Speaking of pilots, did you hear what happened to Ishitaka last year? So, we were posted out in some backwater
Guy likes to do
system.
some gossips.
I forget which one.
This is amazing.
Maybe next. Anyway, we decided to go out drinking at this dumper of a trade station.
By the way, it's so funny, you know, they they say, oh yeah, we went to which station? Oh, Nix, and we went to this dump of a train station. That's obviously Levski, right? They're talking about Levski.
Real dumb. Lieutenant, you alright?
Yeah, bye. Come back.
Right. Where was I? Ishitaka is completely ripped. I mean, she's totaled. Decides her face could do with a bit of an upgrade. Wakes up the next morning with a nose like the front of Freelancer. Never mind, I guess.
Can we come back and resume the conversation? Okay, no.
Yeah, the entire face.
Okay, this time we're going on the other side. Okay, very cool.
Apparently the lieutenant looked completely different before Vega. Lieutenant! Congrats on the big first mission.
Yeah, the animation is
Exciting
quite
stuff.
different, right?
It must be great to finally feel like a real pilot. And not that you weren't a real pilot before, but now you've actually done something without, well, blowing up. Speaking of pilots, did you hear what happened to Ishitaka last year? So, we were posted out in some backwater system. Oh, I
Gosh,
forget
it's
which
true.
one.
The guy is
Maybe next.
talking
Anyway,
and talking
we
and
decided to
talking.
go out drinking at this dumper of a trade station. Real dump. Ishitaka is completely ripped. I mean, she's totaled. Decides her face could do with a bit of an upgrade. Wakes up the next morning with a nose like the front of Freelancer. Lieutenant, you alright? Right. Where was I? The dog said she couldn't fix it. Said she wouldn't fix something that isn't broken.
Oh, right. Very interesting. So there's that particular point. It can be at any time during the conversation where you leave. The AI recognized that they were going to say this word, so they transition to an animation like, all right, bye. Then, Mirographer, you're right. He's like the Boron from X4. Then, when you come back, he says, hey, where was I? And then he resumes exactly to the word he was at in the conversation. That's still very smart, a very smart
Fine,
process.
I guess. Lieutenant! Congrats on the big first mission. Exciting stuff. It must be great to finally feel like a real pilot. And not that you weren't a real pilot before, but now you've actually done something without, well, blowing up. Speaking of pilots, did you hear what happened to Ishitaka last year? So, we were posted out in some backwater system. Oh, I forget which one. Maybe next. Anyway, we decide to go out drinking at this dumper of a trade station. Real dump. Ishitaka is completely ripped. I mean, she's totaled. Decides her face could do with a bit of an upgrade. Wakes up the next morning with a nose like the front of Freelancer. Doc said she couldn't fix it. Said she wouldn't fix something that isn't broken. Lieutenant, you alright?
Yeah, I think you're right here, Gamer Tessus. So the second time he calls, he already abandons conversation. Quite good AI. Yeah. This is it's so much different than the AI we're seeing in the PU, right? Because obviously they don't need the same server tech, and this is bringing so much extra, extra details that seems so far away from what we were seeing in the PU. That's why we need more of those video updates, sorry.
Right. Where was I? Ishitaka had to walk around with that disaster for a month before she got some more shore leave. Lesson to be learned, Anyway, I'll catch you later.
Wow, that was pretty cool.
So that's how you finish the conversation.
It showed off the variety. You see the nuances in between it, right?
Yeah.
And it's kind of like if you didn't know that it was a system that existed with all these angles, you could look at the video and say, wow, it's, really repetitive or this and that. But again, it shows off that variety. I'm approaching these NPCs at different angles, at different points. They're breaking off. And again, as I said, the seamless back and forth with the animation to me is cool, because if you have hitches in there or the poses aren't lined up, or
can you imagine, guys, that we will be able to do that? Apparently, we'll be able to do that with every single AI in Star Citizen. That is the most breathtaking, mind-blowing element of all. This is just one conversation with one AI in the whole of Squadron 42, but you'll be able to do it with all of them. In fact, the AI annoys me repeating the same lines. That's why I understand this progress. Yeah, Game Tester, you're not gonna have to listen to that all the time. If you want to leave, you just leave, right? Exactly. Do you like any of the 100i series, Admiral Griffiths? I like the 300. I like the 225, the dogfighter version, Admiral. If I had to get one, that's the one I would get.
There's not procedural bits driving other bits. The moments it's noticeable, it breaks you out of that immersion. Right.
Yeah. Well, I'm looking. There's maybe a couple of things we still want to polish on these, but
no, of course.
I'm looking. There's a couple of areas, but yeah, we're really pleased with
it. We can always make them better, right?
Yeah.
I mean, even the environments as well in there. So we didn't know initially because they weren't quite final, were they? But you've got to cater for people coming from all the various angles that you could do in those environments, and when you put all that on top of it, there's a lot of work involved.
I'm worried. There's a lot of perfectionists in this company. Chris being one of them.
Chris top of the hill.
yeah, he spots it.
That's cool.
But yeah, I've got another video for you if you want to see it.
Oh yes, please. Showing us as many videos as possible.
So you're showing us how the magic's done in this one.
Yeah. So that was all done in first person, and that was all done. It was all range based, so you were kind of backing off when you're doing the interrupts. But this kind of shows off the player. In these examples, 118. I'll show you the video.
All right. Okay. So the trigger conditions.
Congrats on the big first mission. Exciting stuff.
So that was his focus trigger, realizing he'd seen you, and this is the player.
Oh, did you see that? See, you are still exactly the same spot, but you're not looking at the guy. And he's, hey, Lieutenant, I'm here. Hello. Where are you looking at? Super cool. Just looking somewhere else is going to trigger that different reaction from the AI.
You see 180ing being fairly obnoxious.
Right. Where was I?
And this,
you've got the debug markers, haven't you?
Yeah.
From his feet coming out.
Yeah, he's got an interaction trigger around him, and that's dynamically scaling depending on what the player's doing. So when the player 180s,
never mind,
shrinks.
It's so cool when you totally ignore it, the AI acknowledges that you ignore and say a little line like yeah whatever and does their own stuff. That's awesome.
The player return 180s again. Here you can see it now, goes back into it, increases, and then he actually picks up the conversation again.
Exciting stuff.
So it's that marker that's going out, and then if that's within proximity, it then triggers a certain action. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
So it
Yeah,
was
it'll be
straight.
like a head look and then resume.
Yeah. So the player maintains eye contact for say 4 seconds, for example's sake, and he picks up the conversation.
Maybe next. Anyway, we decide to go out drinking at this.
See the player's doing it again there.
Real dump. Lieutenant.
You see what I mean about maximum trolling, though? It is.
That's awesome. It's like he keeps on talking until he says that Levski is a real dumb. Say so dumb. I'm not looking at you. And the lieutenant, hey, lieutenant, I'm not gonna. This is hilarious.
And you see people doing this to test it
Yeah.
out. You
It
turn
does.
around it's very
Like I said,
strange.
we were trying this out in the office. So me and Reese were talking about it, and they were saying, well, let's go and try it out and see what they do. So you go and engage, usually a coder. So you go and engage them in a conversation.
You're asking for trouble.
180. Yes. So you just 180 in the middle of it, just turned away. I think we did it to Carlos a couple of times.
No, again, but that's really cool. It's cool to see if
It would be fun to do. 'Cause this AI is going to bring a lot of fun to the game. I could totally imagine myself doing an entire run on Squadron 42, doing everything, playing the hero, and then playing Squadron 42 a second time, this time playing the anti-hero, like doing everything wrong, disrespecting the crew, trash talking them, talking to them, going back, trolling them, and see what the difference would be. Seems it's going to be possible, and that's going to bring definitely a lot of fun. So we're gonna have, I can totally imagine, and this is something that I've done in Kingdom Come Deliverance. In Kingdom Come Deliverance, I got the White Knight hero version, and then I also have, the bad guy version too. And we're gonna be able to do that in Squadron 42 apparently, and that is going to, again, when you have a single player game, one of the key things is how do you bring in replayability, and giving players those kind of options is a key to replayability. And a lot of people are going to want to replay the game with different attitudes, and that's how they are building that.
functioning at the level that it is right now. It's all about immersion, and it's all about us as you're walking around this world wherever you are.
Graphics is only here for the F8.
With those NPCs and have those be believable. As you said, Phil, not being locked into a conversation, or even if you're not locked in and you're free to roam, even going away, like you said, is going to have some type of consequence potentially, right? Even if it's you're annoying the heck out of the guys, right? Or the girl, or whoever it is that you're abandoning, or or who you're interrupting, or so on. Yeah.
Well, on the Idris, there's 80 people to troll. And it's not about trolling as well. Sometimes you'll kick off a conversation.
80 people to troll. That would be fun.
I've not got time for this. I'm moving on. You can do that.
Can I
the
troll
moment
the captain?
we saw this implemented in its first pass, and I remember being in a review with it, literally we were all, as Nick was saying, we're all laughing, and then we immediately just went, okay, the amount of people that are, the amount of videos that are going to go online just trolling people.
Yep.
Right? Yes. Because it is true, even just with the testing that we do, you see it, and the amount of weird wild lines that kind of randomly come in from time to time. You're just like, based off of it's somebody casual, or is it somebody that's more, slightly aggressive, or like you said, a little bit gruff exterior, and so on. So
the captain, we're gonna have to troll
it's
the
evolving
captain
all the time as well. Because at the moment we're implementing
or Mark
gestures,
Hamill. Can
so
you imagine trolling Mark Hamill?
As it stands, they kind of stand there fairly static. Then they hit you with a wild line like, "Oh, where are you going?" But now there'll be jashes going in, stuff like this, and giving you the finger or whatever.
That's cool.
Awesome. So those will be going in. Yeah, it's just layering on the realism.
No, that's cool. That's cool.
Big challenge because there's a lot of them. Just on the Idris, I think we've got 245 scenes, and I think 145 of them require this tech.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, it isn't just in the Idris. It's it's everywhere throughout the game. We really sort of tried to make the player experience and moving around, all the spaces as immersive as possible. Allowing the player to
that's
feel
just
like
the Idris. But guys, there's gonna be the Bengal. There's gonna be a Javelin as well. There's gonna be all the other stations. The Shubin station as well. Maybe the Acedo station as well. trolling Mark Hamill and Mark Strong. Yeah, right. So that's gonna be a lot of people to troll.
Part of the story, as it evolves and everything, and
Yeah,
it's
this
it's the first time I've ever
this
seen anything like this in a game.
yeah, and this won't be just look at it. I've got a cat charging across the desk. Come here, you.
Yeah, so
This won't be
cute.
just this won't be just the social areas. This will be FPS scenarios. If you're accompanying a bunch of Marines, you can actually leave them as well. They'll have lines for it.
That's
Oh,
cool.
where the hell are you going?
Yeah. Well, it's one of the advantages when we take the time to build out these systems and build them out to the level that we're holding ourselves to, which is a fairly high standard. Once that system's mature and in place, we also think about the tool side and the implementation side, right? So you have that underlying tech, but then we're also building it so these things can be implemented in a fairly efficient way, and that implementation path matures and matures and matures, meaning it's not just, you guys said, it's not stuck for one area. Once the tool set's there and once we have a full understanding and edge cases of what breaks and what doesn't, right? That's something then you can then propagate everywhere to the most extent. So you can have these same type of interactions regardless of where you're at in Squadron,
Yeah.
which is really cool.
Yeah, we're getting faster at it now. In the early days, it was tough. It was a real challenge. We'd be pestering the other departments. Oh, we need an abandon for this, and we need an extra abandon there. We need a gesture for this.
Yeah.
But now, if you plan it right, you can get these in fairly quickly now.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Just don't upset Carlos by abandoning or running away from him, because he's the architect that's helping you put this together.
All right. Well, this
it's
is
also the amount of meetings we've had that were reviewing abandons and interrupts, and people just would leave the call without saying anything or interrupting each other. Like, it got old pretty quick, but it did happen quite a bit.
No,
all good fun.
Yeah, too easy for puns, isn't it?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well,
All right.
I appreciate you taking
Well,
the
that was
time,
definitely
Phil.
very
It's
interesting.
Really cool to see progress.
The hype
That's
train
great.
is on,
I
guys. The hype
love
train is
showing
on
stuff
for
off. I love
Squadron
it.
42.
Yeah,
Excellent.
no, it's good.
Yeah.
And it's
If we're
really
having
good
one
seeing
of
it.
episode like that
Yeah.
every quarter,
All right. Okay.
send
Awesome.
it in.
guys.
Awesome.
I think we're getting to an end.
Well, absolutely, we are. We're wrapping it up. So thank you, Nick, for joining us, for
You're
helping
welcome.
me out
It
here.
was fun. It was great.
Cool. So I appreciate everyone watching. I always enjoy when we get to show off some more progress and dive
Well,
deeper
that Squadron
into
42
what
video
we're
was
doing here in
definitely much
Squadron 42.
appreciated, Brian
And to
Chamber.
close out the show, I wanted to leave you with a video that our art director for Squadron 42 put together, Nathan Dearsley of Osiato.
Oh, guys! Oh, I completely forgot. Yeah, before we wrap this up, there is something I wanted to say. Paul Jones, who is also a developer here for Star Citizen, has got those amazing t-shirts. So if you want to have a giveaway from Paul Jones, a developer of Star Citizen, just go to Twitter and retweet the hashtag Paul's big t-shirt giveaway, and he'll be able to track you. Maybe you'll be able to win a Paul Jones t-shirt, from this beautiful Castak Arms t-shirt, for example. That would be great. So yeah, if you're interested, that would be a great way to have a unique t-shirt. Anyway, back to the Squadron 42 video. What are we gonna look at here? Oh yeah, the coil again. The brand new coil using the spacescaping. Sorry, it's almost it's 3:30 a.m. in the morning. I can't speak anymore. Spacescaping here in the coil, and those beautiful colors. It's funny because the coil looked much more hot. It had those red and orange colors, and now we're more into glacier color, cold colors like that, indigo, teal, sky blue. Much different atmosphere and ambience than what we used to see in the vertical slice. Oh, that's the Siedo column. I believe in Taiwan, give me a taste. No, Griffiths, I don't like those helmets or circular. I'm not interested in those at all. This is just, fantasy helmets to me. Not interested in that. Look at that. It almost looks like the station has claws. That's... Look at the size of that thing. And this is the interior that we did see earlier in the video. And where's the hangar? This is not finished, right? Is it? Was it the final art? Oh, I think that this is the hangar right here. There it is. There's the hangar. I was trying to see if there were any NPCs, but we can't see them, right? It's just the asset itself. Yeah, you got it right, Mirografas. This is exactly where I'm thinking. So it's just the asset that we're seeing here. And we have the hubs that we saw earlier. It's great because we can really get to recognize some of the things that we did see earlier in the video. It almost feels like there's some kind of ladder that allows you to get inside the station if you want to have a more stealthy approach to it. There it is, right? That's how we get in, and there's gonna be that door with that airlock. Now into the control room and the engineering station. We have the gravity well. There we go. Now shut this off and everything goes EVA, right? For what planet is that station? So this is going to be in the Odin system. So in Squadron 42, obviously. We don't know which planet in the Odin system it's going to be, though. But judging by the fact that it's a little bit further away from the coil, maybe Odin 2? Maybe. So Odin 1 is the coil. Look at that, you can see the condensation here in the Aryan shaft. Very, very beautiful art. Beautiful art. No, it's not a ship, Gamer Taster. It's like a comm array, but a giant comm array, like those we have in the PU, but with actual interiors and people working inside. What idiot builds a space station with a back entrance that only has a hatch to the main server room and power supply? Well, Myrtle, maybe it's an emergency exit. We don't know, right? Maybe they needed to have that emergency exit exit, you know, in case there's a fire or something. Come on, Myrtle. I know that's a video game. It's a show. Take it as a show, right? Okay, this is the mess here, the mess hall, where you have the people are gonna eat food, and habitation area that we saw also. Are we only going to see the AC though? Yeah, it looks like this is only going to be the AC though. Well, it would make sense. I think that the Odin system will be in the PU as well. But they did say that they're not going to bring, that they don't want to share the assets in Squadron 42 in the PU until Squadron 42 itself is released. So that's the thing, we're not going to see that for a very long time, because obviously Squadron 42 is not going to be released this year. It's probably not going to be released this year, so we're more eyeing at you know, maybe 2022. There's the mess here with all the food which is right now not interactable, but they did say that they want to make it interactable, which, you know, is on par with our whole, you know, survival mechanics that we have in the game right now, as we still need to eat and drink food. This is the skywalk here. Inside part where you have the changing room and the server rooms now, which can go up and down and back here at the gravity. Look at all the animation that goes on in this room. Cloth technology here surrounding those servers that are abandoned and decommissioned. That cloth technology that we saw last year during the demo at CitizenCon. And more of the cloth technology. Look at the ground here. Everything is covering the assets. It's one of the secret paths that they were talking about. Hey, Carter 707. It is a great video indeed. I mean, I wish that we could have seen more of the Idris or the Bengal or some of the Vandals, battles, cutscenes, but you know, at this point it's been such a long time since we've been waiting for this Squadron 42 video. I'm just taking everything that we're being given, right? We're definitely getting a full tour of the Acedo station. Pretty much looks like it's done. We'll probably be there 3 times. It's getting a little bit repetitive. Can we see the address? CIG, please. Oh yes, the aeration shaft, secret passages. And the secret passages on top of the secret passages. Very cool. So there's going to be more of them here. Oh, 07 Riddick, how are you? Coming at the end, bro. I'm about to collapse. And back here at the abandoned area. Yeah, as Brian Chambers was saying, the attention to detail is omnipresent and just visible everywhere. It's just mind-boggling. Just look, everywhere you look, there are some amazing little details that make it just as believable as it can get, right? Yes, Michael, we did see that introduction, and especially we were surprised by the white M50, Michael. We did see it. I'll make a video on YouTube with a compilation of all of those visuals from both the videos. And it's gonna be if you don't want to see, you know, all the talk and just want to see the visuals, I'm gonna make a video of that. It's more like kind of like the control room here of the Acedo station. This is from the top floor. I think it was Zone 4, as they were saying. And apparently all of those comms and screens are going to show some actual detailed real-life information that is mind-boggling. There we have it, guys. A full tour of the Acedo station. And is that it for the video? Yeah, it looks like this is it. And that's also it for this stream, guys. It is almost 4 in the morning. I am exhausted. We're probably going to have more videos about, because there's a lot to talk about. Yeah, I've seen that, Jester. I've seen that. Oh, DG. I've seen that. I'm not surprised you get all the favorites of CIG. You always get to see the same people from CIG, whatever. I'm a bit sad for... I'm quite baffled that there was no Bold Gamer. Where was Bold Gamer in that video? Where was DG360? Where was Segalian? I mean, Super Mac Brother was not even there. See, not even. I don't think we saw Salty Mike. Salty Mike wasn't even in that video. See, so I don't understand. I don't understand what this video was made of, or what was for, Jester. Anyway, there's gonna be more to talk about. But I'm a little bit too tired, guys. There is the letter from the chairman that's gonna have its own video. We've seen the briefing room. There's also the election as well. I voted for Paul Lassalle, but that's just because he likes security and he wants to go at war. So I'm all for that too. Guys, I'm about to collapse, so I'm going to go to bed. Thank you so much for sticking with me, guys. Have a wonderful day or night wherever you are. And thank you so much again to Mecha and Ed for the kind donations. That was much appreciated. This is the Eradicator. I'll see you guys later.